Ready?
Hi
I'm
guys.
gonna. Hi guys. I just did not wake up. I swear to God, I did not just wake up. Right,
Welcome
Doc?
in to our very first podcast.
I'm
So
gonna mute the
tonight,
tabs.
all right, go ahead.
I'm gonna mute the tab, but I don't know how to do that. Okay, sorry. I was echoing. I had to. Apologies. What the name for the cast? Not sure yet, actually.
Yeah, we were talking about that and Hanako thought
We
maybe
decide,
y'all might have some suggestions of what we should name our podcast moving
or we
forward.
could have, yeah, or we could have a vote. Yeah, so it's emotional, cute little Gengar. I'm just trying to
What's
place
Doc's
you.
theme as a VTuber?
He's a. I don't fucking know. I'm so sorry. He.
I don't mean to be that guy, I just happen to be that guy. I am goated at names. Well, if you've got an idea, we are open for suggestions because we we don't have one yet. So we were kind of
Sorry, my
hoping that
mom walked in.
that chat could help us out with that.
I'm too.
My VTuber
Ten.
theme. Well, my I don't really have any lore yet other than I am a demon and I have well, do you want to explain it, Hanako?
He is a river oni demon, is what my art mama says. And his he doesn't have lore yet, but
Other
all we
than
know is that he has no eyes.
yep, I have no eyes. And this is my
He's
emotional support Gengar.
I don't wait. Stop. Well, I wish you could put Gengar, your emotional support Gengar, in your Fugi tech because they can't see it on my stream. I thought Gengar is your eye.
Oh yeah, I guess that works too. He for me.
He sees the chat being unhinged and then makes that face. Guys, sorry, we're getting off topic, but we're on topic, but off topic. I would like to ask any questions. If you guys have any questions about it for Doc, like, that I have not asked, please feel free to do so. However, if you don't have any questions and you would like to see me yap, please let me know as well. Without further ado, if I can, somehow get you situated, sorry. We will start the podcast. I'm sorry for anyone who doesn't have a sub. How about all ears, no eyes? Oh dear God. What do you think, Doc?
I mean,
All ears,
it's not
no.
bad.
I mean, it's not bad, but like, why? I mean, to be fair, wait, I have eyes. What in the Cause
All right. Can you see my Gengar now?
look at his emotional support Gengar. However, I'm gonna hold the fuck up.
All right,
You
chat.
have
So
good ear. Go
so
ahead.
tonight for our first episode, Hanako wanted to ask me some questions about my experience in the military, my experience in Afghanistan, and how I've kind of lived with it ever since. my life
Mm-hmm.
as a veteran, um, and
Mm.
she's been working really hard, writing questions, getting questions from her community, from my community, from our VTuber group of Pokai, and just knowing the way these things go, I'm sure that that each of these questions will spawn an entire conversation. A beastly time.
What do you think?
I don't know. You don't have to decide right now. I like that one. All ears, no eyes works. I'm sure that there will be other suggestions before the end of the podcast. So we'll just we'll just roll with it for now.
Mm.
All ears, no eyes is no is probably my favorite so far. Yeah,
Yeah.
you just keep cooking. We'll see what
You
happens.
know what? This is tough. I'm normally good at naming stuff, but it's not hitting the same. I'm gonna keep cooking. You guys enjoy. Okay, well, we have a demon and a neko, so I mean, you aren't wrong. You aren't wrong. You ready, dog, for my hard-hitting questions?
I'm ready. Is chat ready? Is everybody
Are you
ready?
ready? Are you ready, chat?
Hey Taurus,
Hi,
welcome in.
hi, Taurus. I'm here. A demon.
Wanting dated a cat cafe. Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it.
I can't fucking breathe, man. Okay, you ready? Y'all ready? Okay, I'm gonna start anyways because I don't care. Um, just for anyone who is here, massive trigger warning for
Yeah, probably.
that. I mean that works too. I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted. You keep cooking, saying you keep cooking. So, massive trigger warning for people who are not comfortable with us about talking uh comfortable about us talking about death, mental health and all that good stuff. Also the war too. So if y'all are not comfortable with that, y'all can go ahead and leave or just be advised that we'll be talking about a lot of heavy topics today. So if you get triggered easily, I suggest that if you want to stay, you stay, but just keep in mind that some topics are going to be triggering for people who are not comfy to hear. So let's get that out there first. And without further ado, I'll be asking questions. And if you guys have any other questions, just write it in chat and I will read it out loud. And Doc will answer at his best of his abilities. Let's get started. Now, okay, so first question that I wrote was it hard to tell your family that you were enlisting? And how did it go?
So, my family was not very supportive of my enlistment. My father in particular was rather against it. Although they were both supportive of the war, they didn't want their kids fighting in it. Um, I knew that I was going to enlist from the time I was about 13 years old, and I had wanted to enlist for longer than that, but I made the decision that is what I was definitely going to do when I was about 13, and started talking to a recruiter my sophomore year in high school. I talked to a recruiter for 2 years before I actually enlisted. I was going to try to enlist at 17, but and do the split entry, or even just um, know, a prolonged delayed entry, but my parents would not sign the paperwork. Um, and so after I turned 18, um, actually, it wasn't even after I turned 18. It was couple months after I turned 18 and I graduated from high school. I think it was 2 days after I graduated, I went into the recruiter's office and said, "Hey, I'm joining the Army. Let's go get this done." He said, "Alright." Um, we went out to Kansas City and for me to swear in and get the process started. Because when you join the military, you'll go into what they call MEPS, which is, oh, I can't even remember what it stands for. I think it's military. Oh, what's standby? Military interest entrance processing stations. So when you go into MEPS, that's where they do all of the fun stuff. They do a medical examination, a lot of paperwork. There's a gentle guy with a rubber glove and really fat fingers. You know, they do all of the things and get your in processing started. You swear your first oath, and then you go back home and you chill out at home for a little while. They call it the delayed entry program. So you'll go back home, you'll chill out at home until your basic training class opens up. And once your basic training class opens up, then they ship you off to then you'll go back out to MEPS and then they take you to an airport and fly you out to wherever you're. So I wasn't leaving for the army forever. I was leaving to start the initial process. And contrary to common belief, you can back out of your contract after you've sworn your initial oath while you're in the delayed entry program. You can back out and say, "Hey, I don't want to do this," and end up not joining the military. Um, in fact, the commanding officer for my recruiting station was concerned that I was going to do that because I wasn't in real close contact with my recruiters. And it wasn't because I didn't want to be. It wasn't because I was trying to get out of my contract. It was because I was spending my last couple of months with my friends and family. So I didn't really talk to my recruiter hardly at all, and because I went so long without talking to my recruiter, the commanding officer actually called me at home and said, "Hey, are you still doing this?" I said, "Yeah, I'm still doing it. I'm just spending time with my family." But anyway, back to what I was saying. My parents were not very supportive. So I went without them knowing. I went to the recruiting office and said, "All right, let's go get this done." They loaded me up into a car that afternoon and took me out to Kansas City um, for my initial in processing. And on the way to Kansas City, it's about a 3 to 4 hour drive from where I was living at the time. Um, I called my parents and said, "Hey, look, I'm joining the army like right now." And they said, my dad said, I remember very specifically said, "Well, can't we talk about this?" I said, "We can talk about it when we get home, but I'm going to fill out the paperwork right now." And so I did. I joined the military that day, and I came back home. And, and I talked to my parents and I said, "Hey, look, I'm doing this. There's not anything that you can do that's going to stop me. I'm an adult now. And, I've wanted to do this for 5 years and for longer than that, really. And I'm doing this." And, um, I think that conversation kind of, made them understand it's like, one, um, it was a decision that I had actually thought a lot about. I'd done a lot of research. I'd taken everything into consideration, and I think they realized that after we had that conversation. I think they realized that a little bit. This isn't something that I'm just running off to do.
Was that, are you finished? Just making sure. Huh? Doc?
Sorry, my mic cut out. I think having that conversation later on, much later on, when I was talking to my parents about that conversation, they actually said, when that they were proud of me for standing up to them, saying, it's like when they realized that this is what I wanted to do and that this is what I was going to do, um, they understood. And I shipped off the basic training a few months later, and thinking that my parents were not supportive of me, they didn't want me in the military, thinking that I was kind of more or less on my own. And Apollo, shush. And But then I started getting letters. I started getting letters in basic, started calling home every week. We got to call home we got a 5-minute phone call every Sunday. So I got to call home and talk to them. and kind of keep them up to date on what was going on. Hanako, I don't think you need to keep posting that. Just saying. Um, but Paulo, stop. Um, when it finally came time to graduate, that I didn't think that I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, which is now Fort Moore. They've changed the name since then. But I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, and when I graduated from basic training, you have this ceremony. It's called turning blue in the infantry, and the way that it works is it's when they give you your blue cord, and your blue cord is essentially a decoration that goes over your shoulder, and it's literally just it's a blue cord. It's a blue piece of rope that goes under your arm and then back up to your shoulder, and it's the symbol of an infantryman. And your if your family comes out to the ceremony, they can actually put that cord on their soldier, instead of having one of the drill sergeants do. And I didn't think that, I thought that drill sergeant was gonna my drill sergeant who didn't even know my name was putting on my blue cord, and I didn't really care. I was just like, whatever. But when it came time for the turning blue ceremony, I was really surprised to see that not only had my parents come to my graduation, but they brought my brother, my sister, and both sets of grandparents. And so my entire family showed up for this thing. And it was all I could do not to cry. I was like, if I cry in front of all of these other infantrymen, in front of these drill sergeants, I will never hear the end of it. But it was really hard not to, because it was a really important moment for me. Okay, I got you. That's fine. Oh, well, that's not great
It's not.
timing. I guess I'll try to keep yapping a little bit longer while Hanako goes and gets a snack.
Oh my
Um, so moving forward from that and fast forwarding a little bit, um, I ended up going to a unit after basic training. I got hurt. I got hurt in airborne school. I got hurt in airborne school and ended up getting kicked out of airborne school, more or less. I voluntarily withdrew because of airborne holdover for 6 months. I got
god.
sent to a brand new unit that hadn't existed before, up in Fort Lewis. It was a brand new unit. They were looking to fill about 3,000 pairs of boots, with brand new basic training recruits. So a lot of people from my basic training unit actually all ended up in the same infantry unit in the regular army, which is really uncommon. So it took a few years. It took a couple years for us to get to the point where where we were ready to deploy. When I got to the unit, we didn't even have furniture in our offices. We didn't have weapons. We didn't have vehicles, um, or anything like that. So we had to get equipped. We had to get trained. We had to get proficient with the strikers. We had a lot of shit that we had to get done before we could deploy. So I ended up sitting around at Fort Lewis for a couple of years before I actually went to Afghanistan. And once I went, and I was gone for a while, and I started getting letters from home, and I got a letter from my dad, just saying, hey, just it was a real short letter. It was only a few sentences long. He basically said, I just want you to know that I'm proud of you, um, and we support you. So my parents did eventually come around, but it was hard at first.
Okay. Sorry. I'm back. I got food. Don't mind me.
Nocturnal Notions sounds like one of those site videos.
Oh my god, no. No, not like that. No. Oh my god. Oh dear.
Just saying.
You know what? Okay. Okay. Second question was is what was it like leaving your family?
Well, I kind of already talked about that a little bit. I was 18, and 18 is almost, in my opinion, is almost too young to make the kind of decisions that they have you making. Um, and it was really difficult to leave my family behind. I um, I'd never been away from home before, and all of a sudden I was moving halfway across the country, and I was really homesick. Basic training was pretty difficult. It wasn't that they had us doing anything incredibly difficult. Nothing that you do in basic is really hard. Um, Apollo, I'm gonna kick you out if you don't knock it off. Um, Nothing that they did in basic training was really hard, but being away from home and not having any freedom and having, being away from home for the first time, being away from my family for the first time was really difficult for me, and I was incredibly homesick, and that homesickness didn't go away when I graduated from basic. I got out of basic, and when I eventually moved up to Fort Lewis, I was still homesick. It was still really hard. I was still calling my parents, at least weekly, sometimes more often than weekly once I got out and I had allowed to have a phone. And, it got easier as I started making friends. I think that was the biggest thing was that I didn't, I was it's a new place. Nobody there knew each other. And I think not having any friends made it 10 times more difficult and didn't really have the opportunity to make friends of basic. Um, for a couple reasons. One is, after basic, you guys leave and see each other again, unless you're really lucky and end up going to the same unit like I did with a lot of the guys I went. But another thing is you really don't have the opportunity. You don't really have the chance to get to know the guys in basic training on a personal level. So you go in the initial 9 weeks with all these guys living in with all these guys. There's 44 guys or 50 guys in the platoon. Like that. And you don't know anything about them. You know their last name, and that's about it. You might get the opportunity to get to know a couple of little things about them on Sundays. Sundays tended to be, unless we were out in the field, Sundays in basic training were recovery days. Those were the days you see in the movies. They're scrubbing the floors with a toothbrush. That was typically on a Sunday. So, you know, you'd go to church if you were religious, and everybody's religious in basic because people who are religious get to go to church, which means they get to get away from the drill sergeants for a couple of hours. So everybody's religious in basic training. Um, and you don't have as much of an opportunity to build relationships in basic training. And even if you do manage to, once you graduate and out, you don't see a lot of those guys ever. So I didn't really start making friends until I got to Washington. Um, and once I started making friends and I started getting out on my own and having a little bit of freedom, and then I bought my first car, um, and had even more freedom. That's when it started to get easier after that. So drill sergeant's too busy yelling at you to make friends. So the way that drill sergeants worked then, and basic training is completely different now. It is a kinder, gentler army with a kinder, gentler basic training program, and there is a reason for that. For the people who criticize, there is a very good reason that drill sergeants are not dicks anymore, like they were when I went to. But you really only had one drill. So you had three drill sergeants. You had your senior drill sergeant who was kind of just in charge of everything, and didn't interact with him all that much. He was more coordinating the other drill sergeants. Um, and then you had I think they called him a heavy and a light. And your heavy drill sergeant, he was the asshole. He was the one that would scream at you. He's the one that would flip tables and dump your foot locker out and make you do push-ups and all that stuff. He was the dickhead. He was the one everybody was scared of. And then you had your light drill sergeant who was the teacher. He's the one that would actually show you how to do stuff. I remember sitting down with our light teacher. It's like our light drill instructor, and he said, I'm gonna, he'd sit there and he'd sit on a pickle bucket, and we'd sit around him in a circle, and he'd show us how to tie knots. So it's you don't see that a whole lot in TV. They focus on the heavy in your face screaming drill sergeant, but there are different kinds of drill sergeants, and they have different jobs, different roles in training you how to become a soldier. Um, you don't you're not so and I it's funny because I ran into my heavy drill sergeant a few years after I graduated from basic training. I was in JRTC playing the opposition force, playing Op 4 for a unit that was getting ready to go to Iraq. And he was in the unit that we were training, and he had been promoted since then. He was 7, I think 6 or E7 at that point. But he was a super nice guy, and that was a mind fuck because this dude fucked my life up for the better part of half a year, and talking to him afterwards, after he got out of rotation and went um back into the a line unit. He was a super nice guy. So, did you forget to lock your foot locker? I don't know that I ever forgot. People did forget. Um, and I'm not even sure that people forgot. I wouldn't be surprised if they had all if the drill sergeant went and unlocked it and then said, "Oh, somebody forgot to lock their foot locker," and dumped their shit out. Basic training is a mind fuck. And a lot of the stuff that they do there is staged. You know, there was one time in basic when we were told that, hey, if you guys get all this stuff done, then you guys will get a weekend pass um, to or whatever. It said you guys get all this stuff. If you guys do this, 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 and this, you'll get a weekend pass. And the list will be overwhelmingly almost impossible. And you'll be like, oh my God, how are we going to do all this? And then you bust your ass, you work together, and you get the list done. And you're like, oh my God, we actually got it done. And then drill sergeants would be like, all right, good job, privates. You guys are going to get a weekend pass this week. And it'd be like, all right, cool. So, you'd be all getting geared up for the weekend pass, making sure that your class A's are ready and you're all excited because you're going to get a weekend off, and somebody fucks it up. And they're like, guess what, guys? No weekend pass this weekend, privates. You done fucked up, privates. You're not getting to go on your weekend pass, and they take it away, and it's demoralizing. It's soul crushing, because you're about to get your first taste of freedom in months, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And then after you get out, and everybody has a story like that. After you get out of basic and you start meeting other people in the army, that's scripted. It's staged. They do that. So they do that on purpose. It's designed to fuck you up. So, you see in the movie somebody left their foot locker unlocked, and it's like, okay, maybe they left it unlocked. Maybe drill sergeant unlocked it and then started yelling at people. In fact, we caught our drill sergeants doing that. He dropped the granola bar into somebody's patrol cap and then started screaming at him for sneaking food out of the DFAC, even though there wasn't granola bars in the DFAC. So, like, you go into basic training and you have to realize two things. One, you're gonna get fucked up. They're gonna smoke you. They're gonna embarrass you. They're gonna, you know, um, they're gonna get your hopes up just to tear them back down. It's all part of the act. It's all part of the skit, and everybody goes through it at some point in time. It's also mental training. It is basic training. One thing that one of my old squad leaders, he wasn't my squad leader, but he was a squad leader in my platoon who had been a drill sergeant before. He said basic training isn't designed to teach you how to be an infantryman. Basic training is designed to teach you how to not be a civilian anymore. He's like, you don't learn how to be an infantryman. Get here and we teach you. So, um, but that's exactly what it is. It's designed to break you down and build you stronger. That's exactly what it is. So it's all an act. the drill sergeants are really good actors, but that's not them in real life. It's like I said, I met my drill sergeant sometime later, and he was a super nice guy. And it was almost hard to imagine that he was the one that would go through the bay and empty and flip all of our shit and you know make us do push-ups and the bay and toe the motherfucking line, privates. So, but yeah, it's all just an act.
Are you done?
Hmm.
Um, um, third question was, what was it like
Actually,
departing?
real quick, we got a comment in chat that I wanna. It really is. Like I didn't want to do this, son. That's a really good point. And you got the like I said, you got the heavy drill sergeant who is like there to fuck you up. But man, I tell you what, the worst thing in the world, worse than anything that he can do to you, is when you piss off the light drill sergeant, because he's the one that he goes in there and he's like, privates, I'm not mad, but I am disappointed. And it is just soul crushing because he's like, your mentor. He's the one that's been showing you how to do all the stuff that's going to keep you from getting in trouble with the other guy. And when you piss him off, man, it's hard. It's yeah, it's worse than the yelling. Exactly. So, all right, Hanako, I'm sorry I interrupted. You can go ahead.
I'm about to cry. I got interrupted. No. Anyways, what was it like? Oh my god. What was it like departing the army? Was it bittersweet? Or what did you feel about it?
Well, getting out of the army for me was kind of a clusterfuck. I uh I was supposed to go back to Afghanistan and with my unit in 2012. And
Hmm.
the deployment, they cut our brigade down from 5,000 slots to 1,000 slots, because in 2012, the war in Afghanistan, they did a big wind down. They did a big drawdown. So they were cutting the number of soldiers in Afghanistan by like 80% or something like that. They were drawing our we were shifting from a combat focus to more of a sustainment focus. And so our unit, with the exception of a very few people, our second deployment pretty much got canceled. And shortly
Hmm.
thereafter, I was on a run. We were I don't remember, but I think it was a platoon run, and I couldn't. I started having a lot of difficulty breathing. Couldn't breathe. My lungs felt real tight. I felt like I had a belt around my chest. Um, and I fell out of the run, and I was a good runner. I was an A group runner. I was running 12:34, 12:33, 2 minute or 2 mile. So I was a really good runner. And you at least 30 by those standards. Yep, yep. So I uh I uh I fell out of the run, and the medic comes over and he's about to do a needle decompression of my chest because he thinks that I've got a collapse. I've got a tension pneumothorax because I'm having so much difficulty breathing. And luckily the senior medic caught him and told him, no, 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 don't do that. That's a really bad idea. And they got me into the hospital. And long story short, I was diagnosed with asthma. So they said, all right, you've got, I was like, how could I have asthma? I've like never had this problem before. Um, and, uh, and long story short, I'm getting medically med boarded out of the military for having asthma because that is a disqualifying condition. And I was supposed to get out a few months later, and by the time they actually decided to med board me, I was literally a few weeks from my ETS date. So I was already in the process of getting out of the military. I had already come to terms with it. I was, saying goodbye to my friends. And then all of a sudden I'm getting med boarded and they're like, guess what? I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, we're gonna med board you. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be getting out of the army at the end of the month. And And they said, "Well, you're not getting out now. We're going to extend you so that we can med board you." And so I actually ended up getting extended an additional year onto the end of my contract so that I could get med boarded out of the military. And then and then to make matters worse, so, I'm thinking I've got another it's gonna take about a year for the med board. It usually takes 8 to 12 months for a med board at that time. It took 8 to 12 months for a med board. And depending on what's wrong with you, obviously, there are circumstances that'll get you out a lot faster than that. But, but for an asthma med board, you have to go through all these other specialists and you have to do all this other stuff. You have to have a pulmonary functions test and an allergy specialist and all these other specialists that have to check you out and say, "Hey, yeah, he's asthmatic. He can't be in the military." What that mean? What mean? What color inhaler?
But
Um, oh, good God, I don't remember. Blue, I think, was the one that they gave me, but I'll get to that here in a minute. So to make matters so now I've already been in the process of saying goodbye to all my friends, and now all of a sudden I'm in the army for another year, and, but I'm also on an absolutely no running profile, no field problems, no nothing. I get assigned to the transition company, which was essentially just a small company just for people who are getting out of the military, and then they had us divided up for people who are getting out for disciplinary, people who are getting out for medical, people who are ETSing. Um, People who were ETSing usually stayed with their own platoons while they ETSed, but if you were getting kicked out of the military for either medical or disciplinary, then you went to Echo Company, and Echo Company was just for people getting out. Um, and so I'm sitting there on base and I'm going to all these doctor's appointments, and about 6 months after they decided to med board me, I had my appointment with the allergy specialist. And they do an allergy test and they do another pulmonary functions test and they do a couple of other tests and they said, "You don't have asthma." They said, "This isn't asthma." Said, "This isn't asthma." He said, "You've got allergy induced bronchospasms and we can treat that." So they started me on a medication regimen and I got returned to duty. So yeah, medical evaluation board. That's right. So it's basically a board of physicians that decide whether you're medically fit to be in the military. It usually ends with a medical discharge from them. So 6 months after my diagnosis and the beginning of my med board, the med board determined that I was fit for duty, and I was returned I know, I'm sorry. I was returned to full duty, full duty with no restrictions. So I get back to my platoon, and they're in the field. So they truck me out to the field, and I spend 3 or 4 days with my platoon out in the field, and then come back, and they're like, "Hey, you were supposed to ETS in December, so we got to figure out what to do with you." And I was like, "All right." So I talked to retention. I talked to the CO. That in of itself turned into a giant clusterfuck because nobody knew what to do with me because I was already past the end of my contract. I hadn't signed a new contract, and the med board that allowed me to stay in the army was over. So I either had so they said, "Hey, you've got 2 weeks to get the fuck out the army, or you can reenlist today." And I was like, "Well, Jesus Christ, getting out of the army is a process that is supposed to take almost a year, and I have 2 weeks to do it." So I said, "I'm not staying. I'm not staying in here." And so I start scrambling to get all my shit done. They decide that they're gonna give me an extra 2 months so that I can use up my accrued leave, take some terminal leave after I get out of the army and become a civilian. So, so that's what I did. I got out of the army, and then the day before I was actually left, Fort Carson for the last time, I had to go meet with retention, and they try to convince you to reenlist one more time. It's like, "Are you really sure you want to do this? Do you want to reenlist?" And then like, "We've also got the reserves if you want to look at the reserves." And I did end up reenlisting into the reserves for another 2 years. So, and that was a whole other debacle. So I did kind of my transition was a little bit unorthodox. I didn't have nearly as much time to prepare for it, but on the other hand, I'd been preparing for it for a year and a half. So it's kind of complicated. But yeah, it was very difficult. And then adapting to civilian life after you get out is really I guess, there's a lot of jokes about it, but you can't walk into a civilian job and say, "Look here, fucker." They typically frown at that. So, I mean, there's just a lot of things that unorthodox. Hey, there's a name for the podcast, unorthodox. Um,
Oh,
the unorthodox podcast. Um, yep, I was at Carson from 2010 until 2013. 2013, yeah. 2013 or 2000, yeah, 2013. Um, my first job when I got out of the military though, um, the very first job that I was able to secure was a casino security position, and I was working for another my our director was a veteran. Several of our supervisors were veterans, and a lot of the officers were veterans. So, I'd say probably a third to half of us were veterans, and that really helped with my transition from military to civilian life because I was one I mean, I was still surrounded by other feline unorthodox. I mean, it could work. Missed you by about 5 years. Yeah, I know. I'm old as shit.
can I
So,
ask the next question and
yeah.
ignore what Sane said, please? And thanks.
How about feline unorthodox? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Hey, that's your chat. That's not
He
just saying.
said feline unorthodox. He started wheezing, and
All right.
then where the fuck did it? Hanako. What the fuck? I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. Okay, question number 3. No, question number 4. I'm sorry, I'm losing my mental capacity. What are protocols for fallen fallen soldiers? Like
You'll have to elaborate a little bit. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
when you're, I guess, I didn't want to be like, you know,
Insensitive? It's okay.
yes.
It's all right.
So
Just ask your question.
when soldiers die from the war, what are the protocols that you are supposed to follow if they do fall from the
Um,
war?
uh, my part in that ends the moment they're on the helicopter. Um, our first priority is making sure that nothing gets left behind. Um, that unfortunately in Afghanistan and Iraq, the primary cause of injury was explosives, improvised explosive devices. So a lot of times the bodies would not be intact. And first and foremost responsibility, once we've say you're in a casualty event with KIAs. Priority number one is gain fire superiority, defeat the enemy. That's the first and foremost. It doesn't matter if you've got KIAs. For those of you who don't know, KIA means killed in action. Hi, Pink. Thank you for the hydrate. Um, whether you've got KIAs, whether you've got wounded, it doesn't matter. The first and foremost is to gain fire superiority. You can't do anything until you've suppressed the enemy. So once the enemy is suppressed, the battlefield is secured. If there are KIAs, priority one is making sure that there aren't any pieces left behind. So we would you know we had a Doc, our medic, not me, but Doc would have a card that he would fill out. It would go with the body. We'd put him in a body bag. get them on a helicopter, and that was the end of our part in it. Anybody who's really curious about the process of getting um, those soldiers, and anybody really, if you're interested in this stuff at all, a movie that I cannot suggest more is Taking Chance, starring Kevin Bacon. Go fucking watch it. Make sure you got a box of tissues handy. I don't care how hard you are, you're gonna fucking cry. But it is a truly phenomenal movie. They do a really good job with that. They explain the whole process, what happens when from when the body leaves the battlefield, um, when it stops in Dover, which is where the casualty processing center is, to when they're actually interred. And it's a really great movie. I strongly suggest that anybody who is interested in, the military in general, watch it because it's a very powerful, very moving. As far as after they're gone, there's not really much we can do for them. Um, once we get them on the helicopter, we do hold a memorial ceremony. And as a matter of fact, um, I'm not going to do that right now. We do hold a memorial ceremony, more for the guys still in theater. Obviously, we aren't able to go to the funerals because we are halfway around the world. Nobody gets left behind. Nobody gets. We don't bury people in country anymore. We haven't done that for a long time. So when we would hold essentially our own memorial service in country. We'd have the soldiers cross, which, if I'm sure you've seen a picture of it. You may not have known what it was, but you've seen a picture of it. It's a rifle, a bayoneted rifle, barrel, muzzle down, bayonet in the ground, with an empty pair of boots, a pair of dog tags hanging from the handle of the rifle, and a helmet on top. Um, and uh, and so it's the soldier's cross. And so we'd set that up with a picture of the fallen soldier. They would have a eulogy, the 21 gun salute, and playing of usually Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. Sometimes it was a different song depending on the preference of the soldiers. For so But like I said, once they're on the helicopter, our that's as far into the process as we go, is getting them off the battlefield. It's a mortuary affairs and supply. So, all right. Oh yeah, the final roll call fucks me up too, man. So for those of you who don't know what Taurus is talking about, part of the memorial service that and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this here in a second, but part of the memorial service is what they call the final roll call. And so the final roll call, essentially, they'll call the attendees to attention, the burial detail, the funeral detail, whatever you want to call them. They'll call everybody in the room to attention, and first sergeant will get up, or sergeant major, one of the senior enlisted guys, senior NCOs will get up and will do essentially a roll call, just like any other morning. They'll sit there and they'll call out names. Here for sergeant, specialist so and so. Here for sergeant, corporal so and so. Here for sergeant, private so and so. Here for sergeant, and then they'll get to the name of the KIA, and they'll call them out. They'll call their name out, and they call the name out 3 times. Each time adding onto it, it'll be private last name, private first name last name, private first name middle initial, or first name middle name last name. And then at the end of it, they'll turn around and they'll report, um, so and so out of ranks, or whatever it is. And it's really, it's chilling. Like, just thinking about it gives me goosebumps. It'll get you every time. As a matter of fact, that was my biggest complaint when I got into the reserves. When I was in the reserves, and the reason that I did not re-enlist, even though my first sergeant, like, really pushed me to re-enlist, was we had a soldier that unfortunately was killed in a drive-by shooting. A soldier in my unit was killed in a drive-by shooting at his home. and they tried to do a memorial service for him, and they fucked it up by the numbers. The Soldier's Cross was wrong. Nobody knew what the fuck was going on. They did a piss poor job of explaining anything to anybody. And when they got to the final roll call, they start calling names, and there was this E4 that was standing in formation in front of me, and they called his name because they'll call out names of people who are actually in formation first. And the response is here first, sergeant. You're supposed to, it's a roll call. So they'll call out names who are of people who are actually in the formation, and then after they call out two or three of those names, they'll call out the name of the fallen. And obviously, the fallen soldier isn't in formation to answer. So they call his name, and he falls out of formation. Here first sergeant, moving first sergeant, falls out of formation and runs up to the first sergeant like a fucking moron, and and just fucked up the entire already completely scuffed memorial service that they were trying to hold for the soldier who had unfortunately lost his life. And it was like that pissed me off enough that I told before the end of the duty day, I told my first sergeant, I said, I ain't fucking re-enlisting in this shithole for nothing. I says, first sergeant, I'm not doing this. It's like I'm not here to pretend to be a soldier. That's what y'all are doing. I'm here a couple of days a month, like you're in. And I explained to him, like, I respect that. I understand that. Um, but yeah, the final roll call is that, and the playing Amazing Grace. I still can't listen to Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. Like it fucks me up to listen to Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. With the exception of the version by Dropkick Murphys, I can listen to that one. So, all right, shall we continue?
Oh dear lord, that fucked me up. Oh, that fucked me up. Oh. Okay, so my fifth question is there any misconceptions about the military that you've heard? Like,
Oh Lord, we could talk about that all night. You're gonna have to be a lot more specific.
it just, I don't like some, like, how would I, how would I say it? Like, any, like, misconceptions, like, rumors about something going around in the
There's
military, like, or any, like military is bad or whatever. You know, those things.
well,
Blow my nose.
I don't know that I can answer that question because everything that you know about the military, unless you've been in the military, just about everything you know about it is probably wrong, especially if you saw it in a movie, because the movies get it wrong every goddamn time. I've very rarely seen a movie. There's two professions. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what job you have. Okay, it doesn't matter what
Mm-hmm.
your job is. If you're in that profession for an amount of time, you can't watch movies or shows about that profession anymore because you just sit there like, oh, they fucked that up. Oh, they fucked that up. Oh, that's wrong. Well, I've been in healthcare for 7 years. I was in the military for 8 years before that. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't watch anything on TV anymore because it's all hospital dramas and military action movies, and they get it wrong every goddamn time. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of things that people don't understand. I think there are a few movies and shows that get close. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there aren't a whole lot of movies and shows about my era in the military, about the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. There are some. The ones that are out there are really fucking bad. The one that comes to mind almost immediately, Walker. That one was so fucking bad. As far as accuracy goes, I'm not going to get into whether it was a good movie or not, but I'm talking about accuracy as a look into the military lifestyle.
Also, you missed a question from Zach. It says, I heard 21 salute is the highest honor? Question mark.
I mean, yes and no. The 21 gun salute is a very old tradition. Um, it is not the highest honor, but it is reserved for very special circumstances. A lot of times, um, like even for a true 21 gun salute is really something it's not necessarily something that's shown for valor or heroism. It's designed to honor rank. Um, it started out. I think it started out as a naval tradition to recognize an admiral, and it wasn't even necessarily a funeral thing, and it still technically isn't. That's just what we associate it with. Even at even at funerals, they don't have 21 riflemen firing. So the 21 gun salute is honors rank, not valor. I think the highest honor that you can receive, um, whether living or dead, is pretty simply, I mean, it's in the United States military, it's the Congressional Medal of Honor, and I know every military has a version of it. Um, you know, being an admiral or being a general doesn't necessarily mean that that you're a hero. In fact, it means that you probably weren't because you lived long enough to become a general or an admiral. Um, and heroes don't tend to have long lives. But, but yeah, the Medal of Honor is probably the highest. I mean, it's not probably, it is the highest honor that can be bestowed on a service member. And it's exceptionally rare, and unfortunately, it's very political. So a lot of people deserve medals that never get them, um, for political reasons. Another really good movie. I mean, I can't vouch for the historical accuracy of it because I mean it's not historically accurate and it's not a very good representation of the military as a whole. But there was a movie that came out in the late '90s, I think, called Courage Under Fire, and and they go into the politics of awarding a Medal of Honor. And I'm not going to spoil the movie, but it will if you were in the military, especially if you know somebody who got the medal or deserved to get the medal but didn't. Um, it's a tough watch, but another really good movie that I would recommend as long as you aren't looking for military accuracy because it again it's Hollywood. They fuck it up every goddamn time. So have you ever
Think
watched Grave of the Fireflies by Studio Ghibli? I haven't seen that one. The only Studio Ghibli movie that I've seen two of them. I don't remember the name of the most recent one that I watched. But I remember I watched Princess Mononoke and there was another one and I can't remember what it's called. Oh, all right. So I would say to sum up, I would say the 21 gun salute is a tradition. The Medal of Honor is the highest honor. Oh, Zach says, my grandpa said it's easier to get a Purple Heart than any other medal. Well, the Purple Heart is the enemy marksmanship badge, as we called it. Um, I wouldn't say that it's easier to get than any other medal because in order to get the Purple Heart, you kind of have to get either a CIB or a CAB. That's a combat infantryman badge or a combat action badge, or even a combat medic badge, because I'd say those are probably the combat action badge and the combat infantryman's badge are probably the easiest to get because all you have to do is have somebody shoot at you um, to get them, and it pisses off infantrymen when I say that, but at the end of the day, the combat infantryman badge is a participation award. You get it for participating in combat, and all you have to do, like when I got my combat infantryman badge, I was taking a nap in the back of the striker because there wasn't shit else to do. And one of the air guards took a couple of shots at a couple of guys that were running away from contact from another company and that's how I got my CIB. So, and I didn't get a Purple Heart, but I did get a CIB. I did earn it later on in actual combat, but the official, like, day that I was officially awarded the CIB, the official citation, doesn't say that I was taking a nap in the back of the striker, obviously, but it does say that while you know this company was in contact with the enemy, members of this company engaged a retreating element from that firefight. I got it by sleeping on the job. Sleeping on the job implies that we weren't allowed to sleep. Um, we were in the back of the strikers, and that's when you'd catch a cat nap. So we were definitely allowed to be asleep. We didn't have to be awake. We weren't on watch. We weren't on. I mean, we were on. You're always on duty, but we weren't on watch. and there wasn't shit else to do. So, yeah, you sleep where you can when you can. That's exactly right. So, but yeah, I was catching 40 winks in the back of the striker, um, and all of a sudden one of the air guards starts shooting at somebody, and everybody in the platoon got a CIB. So,
That is
um,
wild.
yep, yep, it's stupid. It's dumb. It used to be
That is so
that
stupid.
in order to get the CIB, you had to one, you have to, and this is still true. You have to be a qualified infantryman or special forces operative. And two, you have to receive fire from the enemy. So somebody has to shoot at you. And three, you have to return fire. And if all three of those conditions weren't met, then you wouldn't get a CIB. But
Well, why? Sorry, go ahead.
but in Iraq and Afghanistan, a lot of times they wouldn't shoot at us. There wouldn't be anybody to shoot at. We'd be rolling along and they'd hit a roadside bomb, and people were getting injured and killed and never getting their CIB. So they changed the rules and made it even easier to get than it used to be. And that, I mean, if you tell that to an infantryman today, especially an OEF or OIF veteran, that a lot of times they'll get a little salty about it. But that's the reality of it. So, if you earned your CIB, you know it. I know I earned mine. I didn't earn it that day. I definitely don't feel like I deserved a CIB for that day. I literally didn't do anything. Um, but later on, I was more directly involved in combat, and I did earn my CIB. And if you earn it, you know. If you didn't earn it, you know. You know. So, it is what it is. It is what it is. Is there
So they
paperwork
made
for
it.
getting a medal? Yes. So, when you get a medal, in order to receive a medal, you have to be put in for it. Somebody has to fill out some paperwork, um, i- including what medal they're recommending, a narrative of why you should get it, and all of that, and um, and then that gets submitted, and then that it gets reviewed, and it can get pushed up. They can change it. They can say, hey, I know you recommended them for an RCOM, but we're going to go ahead and award an Army Achievement Medal instead. Of RCOM is an Army Commendation Medal. So Army Achievement Medal is the lowest level medal that's actually a medal. There are lower awards, but they are ribbons, or even some of them are just certificates. The lowest one that's actually a medal is the Army Achievement Medal, and then just above that is the Army Commendation. So, and those are for merit or valor when higher awards aren't appropriate. So, you could put somebody in for an RCOM because they did something that deserves it, that you felt deserved recognition, and then the review board could say, hey, we do agree that this deserves a medal, but we don't think it deserves an RCOM. We're going to bump it down to an Army Achievement. And so, that it is a process, and the higher the medal, the more extreme the process, especially the Congressional Medal of Honor. There's a reason that they put the word congressional in it. It takes Congress approval. There's a whole big investigation involved, um, and stuff like that. So,
They changed the CIB medal because they won't shoot at you, so they made it easier for people to get because they won't
essentially,
shoot at you.
essentially, yes. So they essentially redefined it, because it's not so much that they aren't shooting at you, because
Mm-hmm.
them trying to blow you up is the same thing. The problem is that when you get hit by an IED, 9 times out of 10, there isn't anybody to shoot at. So it was the
Mm.
returning fire that was the issue.
Oh,
So,
okay. So
yeah.
there was. So basically, there wasn't any people to shoot back at. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, because they would set the bomb in the road and then they'd leave. It
Ah.
a pressure plate, sometimes they'd have command detonation, sometimes they'd be sitting there a mile away on a cell phone, and when the convoy rolls through, they dial a phone number and it sets the bomb off. So,
Mm.
um, there wasn't necessarily somebody to shoot at. So they had
Okay.
to flex it a little bit to make sure that people were getting the CIB. People who, not saying they don't deserve it, they do. Those people do deserve it, but it did make it easier for people who didn't necessarily earn.
I see. You got it for sleeping, correct?
I got it because my platoon engaged with the enemy officially.
Okay.
But
But you were
because
sleeping,
but
right?
I did not directly engage the enemy, I was taking a nap, but because members of my truck engaged the
Mm-hmm.
enemy, everybody in the platoon got blanketed as CIB.
Nice. So if your team returns fire to from whatever is happening, do they all get CIBs?
Mhm. Yep. CIBs are generally awarded as a blanket award. So if you're
Mm-hmm.
there and you take fire from the enemy and return fire on the enemy,
Mm-hmm.
somebody does, and you happen to be there when it happens, you're usually eligible for a CIB. It really depends. It's like
Mm-hmm.
Tara said, it really depends on the people who are putting in the paper, how much paperwork they want. But usually they're lazy and they oh, unfortunately.
You got you guys have to do paperwork for that
We
too?
Yeah, it's an award. Any award requires paperwork, and any award, whether it's a CIB or a certificate of merit or a Congressional Medal of Honor, requires
Mm-hmm.
paperwork. It requires a narrative. In fact, I wonder if I have mine available. I got a couple of them. Ah, here we go.
Mm-hmm. You need paperwork to take a piss is wild.
Everything
Just
in the
like
Army
he
requires paperwork. Let's see if this one's it. Let's see here. That's not me. That's somebody else. That's a certificate of promotion. So I do have an example here. This is not mine. This is somebody else's, but I do have a um,
I need to
an,
see.
an example of actually, I have the actual award. Um, so the narrative would read something along the lines of, to Private so and so unit, and then for exceptional meritorious service as a rifleman during Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. Throughout the deployment, Private so and so contributed greatly to the success of Task Force Mountain Warrior. His dedication to duty and outstanding performance are in keeping with the finest traditions of military service and reflects great credit upon himself, Task Force Red Warrior, Task Force Mountain Warrior, and the United States Army. So this was a blanket award that was awarded to this entire unit just for deploying
Mm-hmm.
to Afghanistan. So the narrative
Oh,
isn't
okay, okay.
really detailed. Essentially, what it says is this guy went over there with us and did a good job, and there's a medal for it. Usually, especially with higher
Mm-hmm.
awards, there would be a much longer um, uh, narrative. So, but yeah, there's paperwork with everything, and then when you get your award, that narrative is included on the certificate. It comes.
That is wild. Imagine you needed to like put in a paperwork. I need to piss paperwork.
That's a bit of an exaggeration. I don't remember ever having to fill out paperwork.
I mean, I'm sure Zach was joking because of the how much paperwork thing is, but that is wild. I respawn. Hi,
Welcome
Zomber.
back.
Well, what was the question I asked again?
Not unless it was a UA. Yeah, UAs are a little bit different. That
What
was
is a
fun.
UA? What?
Urinalysis. So when you're in the military, they monitor you very closely for drug use. Thank you for the hydrate, Zomber. Um,
Typical.
and so we would have days where everybody would have to pee in a cup. We had designated people who had special training who would have to actually physically watch you urinate. They have to watch the urine leave your body, go into the cup get
They
closed. They put a sticker over it, so a tamper evident sticker over it, and they send it off to be tested. So like it's a very thorough process, and that required quite a bit of.
So they have to watch you piss?
Mm-hmm. Meat gazers.
Hey!
No special training, just had to be an NCO. I don't know. I never did it. So
I
I
never
thought they
did
had to
it,
take
is
a
why.
I thought they had to take a correspondence course or something.
my god. No way you just said meat gazer. Are there any favorite stories you've heard in the military? This
Favorite
is for
story
questions. For question 6, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
favorite stories? I've got so many stories, like, my whole channel is based off of the stories, from the military. I don't know that I have a favorite. So, and I'm sure we'll get into them a little bit later on as the so, bro, nice gun. So, I
I'm
actually got
trying not to.
hospitalized during a UA one time because I couldn't pee. I was kind of bladder shy anyway, and I was having a really
Mhm.
hard time peeing. And my squad leader forced me to drink 2 gallons of water in a little less than 3 hours, and I ended up getting H2O intoxicated. I had to go to the hospital. It was they had to straight cath me and all sorts of stuff. So
Ours is just like, how? I didn't think. Oh, God.
he was an asshole. He got kicked out of the military for being abusive. And he was just a genuine asshole, and he was tired of waiting on me, so he made me chug 2 or 2 quart canteens back to back to try to get me to piss. And I got super sick, got in a lot of trouble. He should have gotten demoted for that alone, but he managed to stay an E6 for a while, and then he actually got busted down to private and kicked out of the military.
Good riddance. Anyways,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't like you trying to toe blow your bladder. You're trying to kill him. That's what he's doing. Are you still bladder shy by any chance? I know this is such a random
I
question.
don't know. I haven't had anybody watch me piss in 15 years or 10 years.
It could happen when we meet, you know?
Um, let's not make it weird.
Okay,
Hanako, the fuck? Yeah, exactly.
well, you got. See, Zach? Same brain cells, you know? Somber, don't worry about it. It's none of your business. Don't worry about it. Okay. So, Haku asked how long is PT? Was PT, sorry.
We did PT for an hour and a half. Typically, we had for an hour and a half every morning. We would do PT from 6 um 30 until 8, and then we would have an hour and a half for get cleaned up, get changed, and eat some breakfast. Where we had to be. Some days it
What is
was
your
longer, some days it was shorter, but that was the typical. Did you have to wear the PT?
um
Everybody has to wear the PT belt, man. The PT belt makes you immortal.
what do you mean by that? What is the PT belt? Am
So,
I
part of the a piece of equipment that you're issued when in the military is a bright yellow or orange reflective belt, and you pretty much have to wear it for everything. If you're not actively involved in combat, you have to pretty much wear it for everything. Make you wear it for PT, they make you wear it for ruck marches, they make you wear it all the damn time for increased visibility so you don't get hit by a car. At one point in time, we had more injuries from people getting hit by cars on CAF than we were getting from combat in Afghanistan. So they made you wear the PT belt for your own safety pretty much everywhere you went. And the running, it kind of became a meme. Like, if you're wearing, nothing bad can happen to you while you're wearing a PT. There's a
wait,
lot
hold
of
on.
memes about it. It makes you bulletproof. Yep, it makes those bullets turn right around and go back and return to sender.
That is just so wild. Wait, is it always neon?
Yep, it's reflective. It's supposed to be high visibility.
Ah, okay. That is insane. That is so it's a meme
Yeah,
that you are invincible when you make the PT wear the
nothing bad
PT
can
belt.
happen to you.
What were the exercises that consist in PT?
It depends on the day. Some days it'd be running. A lot of days we'd run, and that would be our PT. Um, Pui Sui was a favorite. That's push up improvement, set up improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it would really depend on the day. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
calisthenics, a lot of cardio, a little bit of strength building. When I was in CrossFit was a big thing. Like everybody was into CrossFit, so we did a lot of CrossFit. Yeah, Fat Electrician did a bit on it. That's right. Um, so on the
Mm-hmm.
PT belt. So, but yeah, it would really just depend on the day and who was leading PT. Um, our
Mm-hmm.
I think first and second lieutenants are very fond of running. So if LT was in charge of PT, you knew you were going to be going for a run. Um, if platoon sergeant was in charge of PT, you're probably going to be at the gym or doing CrossFit. So it really just depends.
Anyways, you guys run for PT, right?
Yep.
Okay, okay. Making sure. What do they keep track of your like time when you're running?
Yes. So when I was in, and I know the PT test has changed since I got out, and I don't know exactly how it's, but when I was in,
Mm-hmm.
part of the PT test was a timed 2 mile run.
Mm-hmm.
And, depending on how fast you ran it, they assigned a number rating, a number score, um,
Mm-hmm.
based on your time. So we did do timed runs. Most of the time, though, our runs were done in formation. So everybody would run together and
Mm-hmm.
they'd have you sing cadences so that everybody would be in step. Theory, everybody would be in step. Usually that wasn't the case, but they tried
Mm-hmm.
to. So you ever see it, and you'll see it in the movies. You'll see some guy running with a flag with a whole bunch of soldiers running behind him, and they're singing some stupid ass song. That's what a formation run
Mm-hmm.
looks like. I may.
Hi, Mama. Welcome in. I totally wasn't talking about weird stuff while you were gone.
No, not at all.
Hi. Hi,
Thank you for the thank you
Richie.
for the follow, thief.
Stop. Mama, I swear it wasn't that bad, right? Just say it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad, right?
It was that bad.
No, just May,
So
no.
I wish I could have heard
Nah,
that.
you should hear Richie say Doc's name before he typed it. Oh god. Oh god. I'm concerned. She ain't lying. Oh my god. I'm sorry. Hold on, I'm so sorry. Trying to I'm trying to breathe, but I can't. He's like, Doc, a wink. Open mouth.
Hang on just a sec. I gotta get
Mama's
a bottle of water.
okay. Oh. Oh god, I'm concerned. Oh my god. Oh. I'm sorry. So we were talking about. Listen, it's story time. I respond, hi. It's good. I asked 7 questions and we're already an hour and a half in. Mama shushing Richie is wild. And anyways, um, we will be here all night. No, I have a 7 question an hour. Well, I wish, but I have work, so I can't stay for long. Okay, so this question is from Zomber. You're here, right? Somber.
Yeah, he just
He
respawned.
asked, what rank did you reach in the army?
So as a member of the active duty component, I got out as an E4 specialist. Once I got into the reserves, I was laterally promoted to corporal. Um, I was promotable, but I never went to the board, so I never made sergeant.
Smash.
I'm not.
Oh yeah, we were talking about the weird part came from when he said he was bladder shy, and I asked his question. I asked a random question saying, "Are you bladder shy?" And he was
Yeah.
just like, I don't know. Anyway, so wait, so were you just corporal then when you discharged?
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
What are the ranks? Steve, do not stare at me. I know I said something rude. Do not look.
So there are a lot of ranks. So you have your enlisted ranks, your officer ranks, and then you've got also got warrant officer ranks. So and each is different. Each is a completely different set of ranks, and it's all dependent on
Mm-hmm.
how how you join the military, the process that you go through. If you enlist like I did,
Mm-hmm.
then your ranks are going to be um uh you got um private, PV2, uh
Mm-hmm.
PFC, so private second class, private first class, um specialist, and then so specialist and corporal are what they call a lateral promotion. So they're the same grade. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
specialist is considered, or a corporal is considered a junior non-commissioned officer. So a corporal
Mm-hmm.
technically outranks a specialist, but they're the same
Mm-hmm.
grade. So that's what they call a lateral promotion. You can actually skip over corporal and go straight to sergeant, which is E5. E6 is staff
Mm-hmm.
sergeant. Your specialists, corporals, and E5, your sergeants are going to be your team leaders, and then your sergeants and sergeants first sergeant your sergeants and your staff sergeants are going to be your
Mm-hmm.
squad leaders. And then you'll have your sergeant first class, which is your platoon sergeant. Although I have seen staff sergeants run a platoon as well. And then beyond that, you've got more lateral promotions, master sergeant, first sergeant, and then your various sergeants major beyond that. So
Oh God.
those are going to be your enlisted ranks, and those are pretty much the same. Well, they're not exactly the same. They're actually completely different. Those are the ones that are gonna vary quite a bit between the branches between the military. And then you've got your officers ranks, and your officers are going to be second lieutenant and first lieutenant, who are going to be your platoon level leadership, and then captain and major, um, lieutenant colonel, full bird colonel, and then you get into your officer, your officer. That's where you start seeing stars.
Did you ever get to a point where you got stars or
Oh,
no?
no, 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 no. Those were officers. That's a completely different thing. In order to be an
Mm,
officer, you have to have a
mm-hmm.
4-year degree. It doesn't really matter so much what the 4-year degree is in, but you have to have a minimum of a bachelor's degree.
Mm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and with officers, it's even more complicated because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to join at the bottom. Depending on what your degree is in, you can end up joining as a major, potentially a captain or a major. So and just skip it. Like it's really the officer system is a lot different than the system. And it's based more on what your job is. You're either going to be in a leadership role, um, or you're going to be doing a job in the military that requires a degree in the civilian sector. For instance, a doctor or a nurse. Military does have its own doctors and its own nurses, or they have a rank too. So
Mm,
it just depends on what your job is. So different jobs tend to move through the ranks a lot more quickly, particularly
mhm,
pilots. You'll see some really young full bird colonels if they're aviation pilots. So, um, and then the warrant officers, they're they're really difficult. I don't even fully understand warrant officers. I know that a lot of the helicopter pilots were warrant. We had a warrant officer in charge of our motor, but that's
mm,
a whole that's a completely different.
mhm,
Do you get confused when dealing with rank from another branch? I used to. When I was a brand new private, I mistook an enlisted seaman, for a colonel because their ranks look like their ranks have the eagle on it, just like a full bird colonel's. The difference is instead of holding, I think it's an arrow, is what um the colonel's rank is. It's a chevron. So it looks similar, and side by side, I never would have made that mistake, but without something to compare it to when I was a brand new private and didn't know any better, I mistook a lower enlisted Navyman for a full bird colonel because I was
damn.
stupid. So, and then to make things more confusing,
Mhm,
the Navy's ranks all have different names. Um, Yeah, that's because the Navy puts shiny enlisted rank, shiny equals salute. That's right. Yep, that's exactly true. Shiny
ooh,
equals salute.
actually, so wait, Taurus, wait, dog, can you like specify what that means? That's because maybe like shiny equals salute, like, you know. Sorry.
So it's when you see a enlisted person in the army, their their rank is their rank is typically um it's hard to explain. I don't know how to explain it. They use shined insignias. They use chrome and gold in their rank insignias, whereas ours are typically black, um,
Mm,
or yellow in the Marine Corps. I know they use yellow and red on their rank insignia. Ours are yellow on our Class A's,
mhm,
but you know it So it's really hard to describe because, on a Class A uniform, all the ranks are shiny. So, but in your typical battle dress uniform, what he's referring
mhm,
to is that their ranks have a
mhm.
shiny finish to them,
Oh,
regardless of
oh,
whether
so
they're.
it's
And when you're a brand new private and you see that, your instinct is to salute because you'd rather salute somebody that you're not supposed to than not salute somebody that
mhm,
you're terrified of fucking up because in basic, when you fucked up, you got your shit pushed.
mhm,
Um, But the thing about the Navy rank that confused me was that it had the bird on it. It had the eagle on it. And in the Army, the only rank that has an eagle is full bird colonel. None of the other ranks have eagle. So I saw the eagle and I thought colonel, and that was where my mindset was.
mhm,
But I was completely unfamiliar with. And the Navy, their ranks are all called different stuff anyway. Like, I mean, all of the enlisted, they have different ranks. But in the Navy, their lieutenant is
mhm,
he corrected me. He's like, "Dude, I'm not an officer." He's like, "I'm enlisted just like you." And that was the end. So, but like for instance, in the Navy, um, their a lieutenant in the Navy is the equivalent of a captain in the Army. They're the same rank, but our lieutenant is obviously a lower rank than a captain. So it gets a little bit confusing in the Navy because mostly because of that, because their captain is like the equivalent of a full bird colonel for us. It's like, oh,
mhm,
whereas a captain in the Army is a relatively low ranking officer.
mm. Let me see. I'm sorry, my voice is about to die. What the fuck? Oh, what was your um when you're in Afghanistan, and what was your saddest moments, like minus like fallen soldiers? Like, what did you think of, like, what was sad about like going to Afghanistan and seeing all those like children and families, you know?
But that's an interesting question, and I'm not really sure how to approach it because there's a lot of different ways to interpret.
Oh
Um,
god.
Seeing the Afghans wasn't sad for me. It was actually kind of inspiring. These were
Mm-hmm.
people who had nothing. Okay, their houses were built out of mud. They were, most of them didn't have shoes. Um, None of them had electricity. These people were, you know, living at a standard that would be almost unfathomable for most people here in the United States, and they were happy. They went about they led very simple lives. For the most part, they seemed really happy, and you know the kids the kids would would they did what kids did. They were out in the street. They loved it when we gave them candies. They were so appreciative when we give them candies. We give them little knickknacks. They love candies. They love pens. Um, at one point in time, we had some crates full of soccer balls that we were handing out, and they loved it. The kites was another one that they loved kites. Thank you for the hydrate, Pink. Um, so um, they were kids, and even though these people had very little, had almost nothing, they were always smiling. They were very friendly. They were friendly towards each other. Just watching them in the streets, they were way friendlier than I've ever seen people in the United States behave towards total strangers. Um, you know, their even their greetings, and just there's so many aspects of their lives that deserve respect and admiration because they were they were I know a lot of them tried to kill us, but those particular people aside, the Afghan people were some of the friendliest people that I've ever, and they didn't have anything, but they were more than happy to share everything they had with a total stranger if they felt like it would help them. So, um, it was really I wouldn't say that any of the interactions were sad. Yeah, there was sad things that happened. There were sad moments. Um, I remember one seeing, out in the more rural areas in Afghanistan where we were operating out of, you'd see a lot of kids, hobbling around with one leg because in the hills and in the mountains of Afghanistan, there's still a lot of leftover ordnance from when the Soviets were in Afghanistan. They dropped a lot of landmines. They'd fly over the region and just drop landmines out of airplanes and just leave them. So there's still to
Mm.
this day landmines up in the mountains and hills and stuff outside of the cities, and kids would be out there playing and get their leg blown off. So I mean, that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of sad and hard to see, seeing kids that are crippled, permanently crippled, from the leftovers of a war that happened 40 years ago. So, uh, but at the same time, they didn't let them. Kids are so amazing. Like they don't let shit
Mm.
get them down. And they're just out playing and having a good time, and trying to make the best of what they got, even though they don't have hardly anything compared to what we have. So it was actually very moving to see things like that. So I
Mm.
wouldn't say that it was sad. Um, I'm
Would you go
sorry. Go
ahead?
ahead. No, go ahead. You're good.
You go ahead.
I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about being. I'm talking about what I saw over there from from the
Mm-hmm.
standpoint that I believe your question was being asked. If your question's being asked what the saddest thing that I went through, well, that's going to be a completely different story because obviously we went through some shit over there. We lost 11 guys. We had three more go home without body parts that they deployed with, and we've had half a dozen more. Just this is just from my platoon. We've had half a dozen more that took their own lives as a result of the some of the stuff that but I don't think that that's the I don't feel like that was the spirit of the question. I feel like as far as what I saw of the Afghan, um, what should have been sad really wasn't because
Mm-hmm.
as miserable as those people have every right to be, they refuse to be miserable. It's actually pretty inspiring. Like here in the States, everybody wants to complain about something. Everybody wants to make like they've got it harder than everybody else. And and we've got a lot of let's just be real, we've got a lot of bitches. We've got a lot of bitches, people, people who are just wimps. And
Mm-hmm.
people like that don't exist in Afghanistan. They wouldn't survive Afghanistan. And people who
Mm-hmm.
are over there they're making the most of it. And they seemed genuinely happy and genuinely really cool to see that. Uh,
Mm.
Now the kids were great until they start trying to reach into pockets. Yeah, yeah, they were the little shits would they'd yeah, they would absolutely do that. They'd steal whatever they could get their grubby little fingers on. I had one try to steal my knife one time.
That's wild.
Mhm.
Well, what the fuck are they gonna do with a knife? Stab each other? Mm.
Little shits.
Just
Well,
little
probably
pieces of shits.
probably sell it. It was a genuine K bar, and it probably cost as much as his parents made in a year. So, um,
That's probably fair, but still, that is scary. Oh, they'd be like, give
how do you feel
me
when you
your
enter a combat zone for the first time? The first time I experienced actual combat was really, really difficult to describe because there was such an intense combination of emotions, and I didn't feel any of them until Um, I remember we were on a patrol. We were on our way out to help with the recovery operation of a couple of strikers that got stuck, and we got caught in an L-shaped ambush.
Oh,
And so we were taking fire, automatic weapons fire from the front and from the right flank. And a situation like that's not supposed to be survivable. I froze, didn't really understand what was happening. So did we. I'll get to that in a second. So we were moving through this field, and we start taking fire. We start taking fire from the front and from the right flank, and we hear the first couple of shots, and we all stop and we look at each other. And I remember looking right at my team leader, and he looks back at me and he says, "Are we getting shot at?" And I'm like, "I think so." And we're standing there in the wide open, staring at each other, just like, I think we're getting shot at, and nobody's fucking doing anything. Like we all kind of froze. And then the bullets got a lot closer, a lot very quickly, and we decided that standing in the middle of an open field was not a good idea. So we took cover after that. Um, and the actual firefight probably lasted 15 to 20 minutes of sporadic gunfire. They shot at us, didn't manage to hit anybody. We shot back at them with significantly more success. They disappeared into the wood line and then popped back out a few minutes later and started shooting at us again. And then the helicopter showed up and cleaned house, and then they ran away. Um, what was left of them ran away. So it was a pretty quick. It felt like hours, but it was realistically probably 15 or 20 minutes. Um, and in that 15 or 20 minutes, I experienced confusion, adrenaline, a little bit of euphoria, a little bit of terror. It was like, man, this is what I've spent my entire adult life training for. Let's fucking go. Um, I remember the first time. I remember right after we took cover, we were scattered to the winds. I ended up hunkered down behind a hay bale next to a squad leader from a completely different squad. And we're sitting there scanning the tree line, and they had stopped shooting at us, and they'd pulled back into the tree line. And we're sitting there scanning the tree line, and I was a saw gunner, so I had the M249, and I'm laying there behind my gun, and I'm watching the wood line. I see this guy pop out of the wood line. He goes running along the edge of the wood line, and he's wearing the traditional garb, brown, all brown. Had some headgear on. Don't remember what color it was. He had what looked like an RPK or a PKM on his back. I don't remember which one it was. Um, and he was skirting the wood line, and I told the guy next to me, I said, "Sergeant, I got a guy in a brown man dress skirting the wood line up there." And he just looks at me like I got a dick growing out of my forehead, and he's like, "What the fuck are you telling me for? You've got a machine gun." And I was like, "Oh fuck, yeah, you're right." So, I engaged, and after I engaged that guy, that's when they started shooting at us again. And and then the helicopter showed up shortly thereafter.
Uh,
It was
Oh my
pretty
god.
intense.
I'm so sorry, Richie. Damn, that's a big ass gun.
So,
Uh, I'm so sorry. There's someone in the woodlines. What the fuck are you looking at me for? You're fucking holding a machine gun. Uh, did he actually say that to you?
yeah, that's exactly what he said. I like that the image of him looking the way that he looked at me is permanently burned into the back of my brain. Like, I will never forget the look he gave me, like, are you fucking stupid?" Like, his facial expression just screamed, "Are you fucking stupid?" He says, "The fuck are you telling me for? You've got a machine gun." And I was like,
You're
"Oh,
just
yeah."
saying, oh
You
yeah.
know? So so, yeah, that is like, "Oh, that just fucking happened." I ended up getting really sick after that fight. I ended up becoming quite ill.
Mm.
So, I remember that was the day that our squad leader almost blew us up with a hand grenade. I think I've talked
How
about
the
that on the
fuck?
channel. Yeah, so we push into the wood line after after
Okay.
after we're relatively confident that there aren't any living enemies left in the wood line. Um, we push into the wood line to do our battle damage assessment, and we get to this big ass fucking grape wall. And so we're standing there. It's about half an inch of water at the bottom of this thing. So we're standing there in this tiny little irrigation trench, and there's this big ass. It's probably 8 to 10 feet tall, 8 to 10 foot tall wall. And my squad leader, who who's like, he's seriously like 5'3", 5'4". He was tiny. He probably had to get a waiver to get into the military, and he had little man syndrome really bad. He decides that he wants to throw a hand grenade at this wall. So hand grenades are kind of awkward things to throw because they're fucking heavy. They weigh 14 ounces, 14 or 15 ounces. So they're just shy of a pound. And they're shaped kind of, they're kind of shaped a little bit weird, especially if you have small hands, because you got to hold the spoon and the grenade, and then hold them together while you're trying to
What?
throw it. And he tries to throw this
What?
grenade up over this grape wall, and it goes straight up. Spoon comes off once it leaves his hand, which starts the timer. It goes straight up, comes straight back down, and lands at his fucking feet. And so we're all like diving out of this damn irrigation trench and hitting the dirt as hard and fast as we can before this thing blows up, because this fucking mole tried to throw a grenade over a wall, didn't make it. So yeah, that was fucking scary. Almost died several times that day. Um, but
Yeah, I don't know if I should laugh or be very. How the fuck? You know,
no, this guy
I'm not gonna judge.
this
I'm
guy
not gonna
was a
judge.
shit human being anyway. Like I said, I mean, he got fucking kicked out of the military. So he was just an awful soldier. Um,
Was it the abusive one that you were
yep, same
talking
guy.
about?
Yep, same guy.
Mm-mm. Did
Did
he
he
get
get
his
his
grenade pick?
nobody said anything. I think that he probably would have gotten in a significant amount of trouble if somebody had said anything, but we weren't rats. We weren't gonna say we didn't say anything to anybody. There's just
Oh, that
Yeah.
was a good. Oh shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly. So,
Uh,
um,
at least you guys moved out as fast as you could before it blew up, though. So
oh shit, we've got
another raid.
raiders. Hi raiders. Welcome in. I don't know if they're actually here yet. I just see raids.
I
I haven't
can't
seen
see
a raid notice
raids.
yet.
I don't think. I think. Oh, huh? Oh, you haven't been raided. I think they just wanna flag. Probably
Probably
just
just
me.
you. Oh, that's all right. Well, in any case, it's good to see you again. Glad you dropped in. We're just chit chatting about the war in Afghanistan. So uh,
Zach was like, I'm surprised you got air support so quick.
we had um we had probably one of the best Kiowa warrior units in the entire war. Our Kiowa support
Mm-mm.
unit was confirmed to have fired more rounds in combat than any helicopter element that had taken part in the Afghanistan conflict. And that's not just Kiowas, that's any helicopter element. And these dudes were fucking nuts. They were insane. Um, and they were Johnny on the spot, but they were assigned to our unit, so they were standing by specifically for our battalion. And so when we called,
Mm-mm.
when we called, they flew. So they were
They weren't
generally
missing.
pretty quick. Now if somebody else was on station, we had every kind of air
Mm-hmm.
support. At one point in time, I remember one time we were in a really gnarly tick. A tick is troops in contact. And this was right before we came home. Um, we ended up in the middle of this. There was this big surge, and they called it Operation Blowfish because the idea what behind it was we were going to puff up like a blowfish and try to be intimidating. Cass was the Aussie little birds, dude. I fucking
Yes.
love the Aussies. I fucking love the Aussies. We didn't ever have little birds flying Cass, but but uh,
Mm-hmm.
every Aussie that I served with was a badass. Um, but anyway, we were in this operation. We were in constant. Well, we were in sporadic contact for 4 days straight. Um, we ended up like getting it was gnarly. It was a very long, very prolonged fight. And the enemy would pop out of the pomegranate orchards and fire at us from one place and then pop back into the pomegranate orchards and then pop out sometime later in another part and fire at us from another place. And this went on for like 4 fucking days. And at one point in time, the only close air support available was a Huey from the Afghan National Army with some crazy motherfucker leaning out of the side of it with a fucking PKM, and he's just blasting away with a PKM like he's fucking Rambo or something. Um,
Is it a
so
PKM machine gun?
yeah, and it was fucking crazy. It's like first of all, who the fuck gave the A&A Hueys? Second of all, where the fuck is our actual close air support? Because this is fucking bullshit. Um,
Just like
that's for the A&A. Yeah, those dudes were fucking stupid. God,
how
I hated those
the
guys.
how no, I genuinely don't understand. The PKM is very big and bulky,
Well,
so
it
I don't
was mounted in
understand.
the side of a helicopter.
Oh,
And
okay.
so the helicopter, the
That's fine.
Huey has big ass sliding doors on the side that can open all the way up, and pretty much you can pretty and you can and so it was mounted into the side of a helicopter, and they've got the helicopter opened up, and he's standing up in the
Mm,
helicopter shooting at it. So
yeah, I see. What was your gun?
Huey's your favorite. I carry so initially I was a saw gunner. But
Mm-hmm.
I was not a saw gunner for very long.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly after our
Mm-hmm.
our second platoon got hit pretty hard and took quite a few casualties. And so
Mm,
about 3 months into the deployment, they rearranged the platoons to kind of try to balance it out because they were so short-handed over in second platoon. And I got transferred to
mm-hmm.
second platoon. When I got transferred to second platoon, I became a grenadier. So I had an M4 with an M203 grenade launcher underneath.
What's up?
So
That's a big ass. It ain't big from your machine gun, right? What was your machine gun,
My
Doc?
machine gun was the M249 saw.
It was just like without the grenade launcher, right?
Well, no, the saw didn't have a grenade launcher. I had an M4 with a grenade launcher.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
And we still use the M203 back then. They've changed it now. I don't remember what it's called now, but
M203.
it does make a very satisfying sound. It's a kind of a
Mm,
uh it's hard to describe it really because it's a bang and a thunk at the same time. And it's kind of
the
got a
thunk
little bit of a
thing.
ping to it. So it's a really different sound. It sounds very odd when you shoot it. It also
Mm,
kicks like a motherfucker. I hated shooting that thing because they said they told when we first shot him, they said it kicks like a shotgun, but it kicked way worse than a shotgun for me. And you shoot it at an awkward angle, which makes it even worse.
Doc.
The M320 is that the H&K one, Taurus? Is that the new H&K one? Yeah, so the military was beginning to transition to a new underbarrel grenade launcher, a rail mounted grenade launcher when I got out. Yeah, it had a
Mm,
high recoil. And it was made by H&K, and it was fucking cool, but we didn't get our hands on it until we got back. We deployed with the old noob tubes. Um, so
mm. Um, when you're not carrying around like your ARs, do you carry around any other weapons like a pistol or a knife? You said you guys carried knives too,
I
so
carried a knife. It was my personal knife. I brought it from home. Um,
okay.
we were not issued bayonets, we were not issued knives, and we were not issued sidearms. The only people who
Mm,
were issued sidearms were vehicle crew, and that's
mm,
because in a striker, there's really
mm-hmm,
not a place for you to store your rifle where you can get to it quickly if you need it. So vehicle crew were issued M9s, which is a 9mm
mm-hmm,
Beretta. But the rest
mm-hmm,
of us were not. Were not issued sidearms. The only weapons we carried, I carried my my M4, my M203, and then we all carried a couple of frag grenades as well. And then a lot of people carried knives,
mm-hmm,
but they were more for utility than for be carried as a weapon. So
mm-mm. God, I've been holding to use the bathroom because you were talking.
that's the time you should have
So,
gone.
what?
That's the time you should have gone. You could have been back and nobody even would have realized you had to leave.
Well, I wanted to listen to your story, okay? Like, don't judge me.
Okay, I'm not judging. I'm just saying.
How dare I?
Hmm. I was already deployed as maneuver battery. First sergeant and CO were the only ones with pistols. Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
I don't even think that our first sergeant and CO, our CO had a pistol. We had one guy. We had one, and he recovered a Makarov off of an enemy KIA, and he put it in a vest mounted holster and carried that motherfucking pistol through most of the deployment and then brought it home with him. Walked right through customs with a fucking Makarov pistol in his holster. They didn't question it. They didn't ask anything about it. They just assumed it was his service sidearm, and he brought it home with him. So
That
yeah,
is wild.
infantry don't carry pistols. Yeah,
Mm-mm-mm.
I was like, there's no way they're not gonna pop him. And he walked right through it and he's like, dude, trust me, like it'll be fine. And he walked right through customs with it. Nobody batted an eye. And he brought that fucking gun home with him. Now,
Tara said, lucky
lucky ass
ass, luck
bastard.
ass
Yep.
bastard.
Yeah. I don't know, man. You
Damn.
couldn't pay me to shoot a Makarov. I've seen too many horror videos, too many, like they're just not very safe pistols. The safeties on them are trash. Um, they're just not very well made pistols in my
I'll be right back.
but yeah, I mean,
Entertain chat while you're at it.
so I did carry an Mark 14 EBR for a while. I was the squad designated marksman for several months after ours got hurt in a non-combat related accident. Um, and that weapon system, oh my god, I love that gun so much. I went and fucking bought myself one when I got home from the. I love the M14. It's such an amazing rifle. Um, so that was pretty cool too. I only fired it one time in a semi-combat related incident. So I was on guard duty at the district governor's office. We set up a command post around the wouldn't shoot it, I keep it though. Yeah, me too. I put it in a plaque on a in a shadow box on the wall is what I would do with. But I was sitting up on the roof one day with a buddy of mine on sentry duty on guard duty, and we were behind the governor's office building. There was a big hill, and on the other side of the hill there was a little miniature, like a little resort type of place where people would go for where the locals would go for you know vacation, more or less, what amounts to a vacation in Afghanistan. So there was always people like having picnics and stuff on the side of this hill, and we'd put signage up and barbed wire up about 300 meters away from the edge of our compound, maybe a little bit less than that, all the way around the perimeter of our compound, all the way up to the road. And the signage essentially said, "Do not cross. Lethal force will be used." And it said it in English and Pashto, and I think it said it in Dari as well. So and our orders were, if anybody crosses this line, oh, thank you for the stretch, Zomber. I'm stretching, I promise. If anybody crossed this line, we were to engage with lethal force. And one day I'm sitting up there with my buddy, um, and we're on guard duty. I'm sitting there. We're each kind of pointed in almost in opposite directions. He's pointed towards the road. I'm pointed to the mountain, and we're both sitting behind M2 machine guns. But we've got our service rifles with us as well. But we're sitting behind M2 machine guns, which is the Browning 50 caliber that we've used since freaking the early 1900s. And and I see this group of kids that are playing on the hillside, and they're playing just like it was four young boys, probably between the ages of 8 and 12 years old. It was really hard to tell because they were far as fuck away. They were about 300 yards away, maybe a little bit further. And so this group of kids is playing on this hillside, and they start playing their game is drifting closer and closer to this perimeter, and they stop at one of the signs, and they're all standing there staring at the signs. At this point I'm watching them pretty closely because they're getting really close to our perimeter. And one of them kind of waves off his other buddies and starts climbing through the fucking barbed wire. And I'm like, "Oh god, please don't fucking do it. Do not make me fucking smoke this smoke this guy for being a stupid ass kid," because that's what it was. He was being a dumbass kid. He was doing what kids do. And I honestly I didn't feel like there was he had any malicious intent whatsoever. But as he starts trying to climb through this barbed wire, um, I I I decide against using the 50 cal and switch to I get behind my M14, and I draw a bead on him. I'm watching him for a few seconds, and I'm like, man, I really don't want to have to shoot. I really don't want to have to shoot. And and he crosses the line. He takes off running towards our patrol base, and I'm like, oh fuck. So I tell my buddy, I said, I'm gonna take a warning shot at this dumbass kid if he doesn't stop, then I'll take care of it. He's like, all right. So I drew a bead on a patch of brush that was several meters behind him, and I fired a single shot. It's the only time I ever fired the Mark 14 in combat. And the kid decided he had better places to be, like back home, changing his pants. He turned around, sprinted back up the hill. Some of the A&A guys started taking some pot shots at him with their AKs, but they weren't even close to shooting in his general direction. I don't even know that they knew what I was shooting at. And he left, and that was the end of it, or at least I thought it was the end of it. Um, and and yeah, so afterwards, after we get off of our watch, they wanna debrief us. My squad leader's all pissed off at us because, he has to do extra paperwork now because we fired rounds while we were on guard duty. Um, and, and he asks me, he's like, "So why didn't you shoot him?" I said, "Well," and I told him what I just told you guys. I said, "He was a dumbass kid being a dumbass kid." He's like, "He didn't mean any harm. He was just a fucking kid who didn't know any better." And, I mean, kids do stupid shit all the time. It's amazing that any of us survive to adulthood. And he agreed with me, and he sent me on my way, and I got made fun of. A lot of the guys in the sniper section made fun of me for not taking a lethal shot. Um, and I'm sitting in, and I seriously, like, at one point I regretted it.
Got
Like, I'm sitting
returned.
there like, what if it was something more? What, was it the right call? Should I, because I did technically disobey orders. And so I'm beating myself up over it for the next day or so. I'm thinking, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing? What if he was probing us? What if he was wanting to see how far he could get, and so that he could go tell his parents and then they could try something later? Or thank you for the hydrate, Pete. Or what if he had an S vest on or something like that, and he was charging us, and I took that shot, and he because I took that shot instead of taking a lethal shot, what if he had gotten to the base and done some damage or something? What if something had happened? I was seriously questioning myself. But then the next day, the CEO calls me in his office, and he's got questions, and he asks me, and I tell him essentially the same thing. I said I felt like he was just a dumbass kid being a dumbass kid. I really didn't want that on my hands. I made a judgment call, and I told him, and if I made the wrong one, then I'm willing to do that. And I ended up getting a citation for it. I ended up getting what they called a courageous restraint citation, which is a meritorious citation. It's not a medal; it's just a certificate. But I did end up getting an award for it, which was really interesting and very unexpected, because I mean, they
What
could have slapped me with an Article 15 for disobeying a direct order or failure to follow a lawful order. So,
what happened? I
I was
wasn't
just
here.
entertaining chat like you told me to.
Yeah, but
Um,
you were telling stories
well,
and I
yeah,
missed it.
yeah. I can tell you later. I'll tell you later if you want to know. Chat doesn't need to hear it again. So,
How dare they?
I feel like that was a really important moment for me. Um, Looking back on it, I feel like that was a really important moment for me because, a lot of people, they go over there and you get so wound up in everything. Um, and I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about it. Posture check, thank you, Pink. I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about it. But there was an incident involving my sister battalion where a bunch of guys ended up going to prison for war crimes, because they did some pretty awful stuff, and our entire brigade kind of lived with the stigma of that, after we got back, and it kind of spoiled the whole deployment and kind of spoiled all of the good shit that we did over there. Um, so, but and it's for me, that moment, that decision that I made, that judgment call where I knew that I could potentially get in trouble, and I chose to do what I did, really kind of redefined me as a soldier, and um, helped me cope with all of the times that I didn't have a choice, a lot better. Because a lot of guys, like I said, the sniper section was making fun of me, for not taking a lethal shot. Like there was some dudes that were just like, you get caught up in it, and a lot of dudes, if it had been anybody else up there, a lot of dudes might have taken that shot. So, I feel like that moment really, it was a really important moment. It was a small thing, but it was a really important moment in what would happen after the war.
やめてください。Mm, hmm.
Wow. Really,
Uh,
Zomber?
oh, my dear lord. Um, we're having a serious conversation, and apparently, Somber decided to Yamate Kudasai. Okay.
It
Oh
happens.
shit. Oh shit. Shit, make that make me jump. I think your soundboard is a little bit too loud,
Well, it was
making people jump there.
I don't have
So
a really good point of reference for it. I can't hear it itself. So, I mean, I can, but it comes from a different source. So the timing
you
was
have
perfect.
to. No, Somber is stupid. I'm joking. I love you, Somber.
Anyway, shall we move on to the next question?
The stream was so delayed.
Points redeems are like that
But
though. Like they're
I
always
am
they
sorry.
always take some time. It's okay. It's all good. It's all good. Um,
Oh,
shall we continue?
oh, yeah. This one's gonna fuck me up.
Okay. It's probably gonna fuck me up too, but god damn, I'm drinking a lot of water. This is my fourth bottle of water since we sat down. All right, go ahead.
So going on from question number 4 to question number 10 is that how do fallen soldiers come back to their family? And well, obviously you can't make it to the funeral, but are they I've seen that they were awarded a flag. What does that symbolize? And how do I
Going
mean,
over
yeah.
and yeah, that would be bad. This is something that I'm not an expert in. Like I said, our dealings with it is over as soon as the remains are on the helicopter. Um,
Mm-mm-mm.
I know that the folded flag, I mean, it's not just fallen soldiers. Every veteran has the right to a military funeral if you got out of the military on good terms. So,
Mm.
and so when you're buried or if you're cremated, it doesn't matter. Your remains are
Mm-hmm.
covered in the flag. The flag is draped over the casket or the urn in the case of a cremation. And after the funeral service is over, the end of the service, they fold the flag up and they present it to
Mm-hmm.
the surviving family member. And then a lot of times, and so if you might see it, a lot of times they'll display it in a case on their yeah, they did that for your dad. Yeah. That's I'm sorry to hear that, but yeah, it's I mean, my great grandfather lived until he was 96 and he was a World War II veteran and his daughter, my grandmother, received his flag when he passed away. And he died from natural causes. So, I mean, you don't have to be killed in combat to get that flag. And when they
Mm-hmm.
fold the flag up and they present it to the family and they say, on behalf of a grateful nation, and it symbolizes a token of appreciation for the
Mm-hmm.
sacrifices that family. Um,
Oh my
it's
god.
it's it's just a long-standing tradition. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
and so, yeah, that's what that's all about. And you might see flags like that displayed. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people will display them on their mantle or something like that in a special case. So if you're over at somebody's house, thank you for the hydrate, Pink. Um,
Damn, you're getting bombarded with hydration.
so if you see that, that's a lot of times that represents a family member that is no longer with us that served, but it doesn't necessarily mean it.
Oh, okay, got it. Thank you. Somber's asking another question from Somber. This might fuck me up too. So he got curious. He said, let's say a family member passes away while you are serving. Do you get informed?
Yes. Yes, you do get informed. And the army will try to, if it is at all reasonable, they will try to get you home. When I was right before I left for Afghanistan, in fact, we were about to go on our pre-deployment leave. So they let everybody go home one last time before you deploy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if they can afford to do that. And we were getting ready. We were a couple of weeks away from going on our pre-deployment leave before leaving for Afghanistan. And my grandmother passed away. And the way that it works when if somebody passes away, or even if they're actively dying, in her case, she hadn't passed yet, but she was very very close. The Red Cross actually handles that. So your family would contact the Red Cross, say, "Hey, I'm so I'm the parent of service member so and so, and his grandmother is actively dying." And so the Red Cross is responsible for finding you, and they're really good at it. This is I'm gonna tell you, my grandmother. It was a Wednesday night, and my parents call me and say, "Hey, just so you know, grandma's probably not going to make it for the morning." And I said, "All right, here's what you need to do. You need to contact the Red Cross. You need to let them know what's going on. They will get a hold of me, and they'll get a hold of my leadership." They got off the phone with me, immediately called the Red Cross. 15 minutes later, I get a call from the battalion commander. "Hey, did you know that your grandma's sick?" "Yes, I did, sir." He's like, "All right, here's what you need to do." And so I went into the battalion office. I signed the emergency leave paperwork. I was on a plane that night back home. I didn't make it home. She passed before I got back, but I was on a plane that night.
Ah, you're fucking me up here. Oh my lord. Hi. Um, so wait, isn't the Red Cross technically a organization that handles donations?
The Red Cross handles all sorts of stuff. Emergency relief is what the Red Cross does. Part of that is
Oh,
is
okay.
is is blood and platelets. Part of that is getting water to
Mm-hmm.
disaster affected zones. Part of that is taking care of the military in a situation like that. The Red Cross does a lot of stuff. They're really
Mm.
a pretty amazing organization if you do any dig. So yep. You've taken in Red Cross messages. Well, yep, that's exactly right, Taurus. So that's exactly what happened. And from when my parents first called me to when I had a plane ticket home was a matter of maybe 2 hours, and I was on my way home that night. I didn't quite make it. I was on my way to the airport when my parents called and told me that my grandma had passed away. But I did get to go home for the funeral. And my unit was even super generous, and they said, "You know what? Don't even bother coming back. We'll just roll this right into the pre-deployment leave." And I got an extra week of leave for free that I wasn't charged, and then I just came back with everybody else, and then we went to Afghanistan shortly. So yeah,
Mm.
they're really good at what they work really fast. They've been doing it for a long time. They got a lot of practice. So um, it ended up working out, and so that's how it worked. Yeah. Well, my unit did right by me about on a lot of stuff. They it they our leadership was, um, they cared about us. Our leadership cared about us. I'm not gonna say that they were the best leadership in the army because they certainly weren't, but they did genuinely care, and they did generally. So,
Mm. Hmm. How was your when you came back after your grandma passed and you had your funeral? What was it like going back um to your or to the army again after your grandma passed? What
I'm
was your emotions?
I mean, I had time. After my grandma's funeral, like I said, I rolled right into my pre-deployment leave. I spent the last couple of weeks of my leave spending time with my family, spending time with my friends, saying my goodbyes. Um, making arrangements for while I was gone, things like that. And by the time I came back, I was okay. I was ready for back to business as usual. And
Mm.
rolled right back into getting geared up to deploy. So, I mean, it was what it was. You got up and you moved on. You had to, um, because the mission doesn't stop.
Oh my god, my eyeballs are itchy, sorry. Are you ready for your next question?
Absolutely. Let's keep rolling.
Question is 11. Oh, this might fuck me up too. What the fuck is wrong with me? How have, oh, not how have you lost your friends in the war? And if so, how are you now?
Well, I think everybody I think I've more or less answered that question. We deployed with 44 guys in my platoon, counting our non-organic medic and um, sister, and we came back with 30. 11 of them were killed in action. 3 of them came back early with life altering disabilities. We had one guy lost an eye, one guy lost a leg, and another guy lost a testicle. Um, we had we had a lot of other injuries that they were able to eventually return to us during the deployment. Um, it was hard. I think when you're in combat and you lose people, it's hard. But you have a job to do, and that job doesn't stop because just because your friend died. So you have a task, you have a purpose, you have something that keeps you going, and it's not good by any means, but you can't afford to slow down. And then they have the memorial service, and
Mm-hmm.
it starts to hit you. For me, at least, it started to hit me at the memorial service because those guys weren't there anymore, obviously. Um, and they're sitting there and they do the eulogies and the last roll call and the pipes and the 21 guns, and and you're looking across the room, and the everyone's obviously sad, everyone's crying. These are the hardest fucking men on the planet. Like these are American infantrymen. These dudes are hard, and they're fucking crying, and it guts you to see it. And then, but for me, coming home was the hardest part. I remember getting home, and I didn't have anybody waiting for me when I got off the plane. My family didn't even know when I was going to get back, um, to be able to book tickets. So I didn't have anybody waiting for me when I got home, or at least I thought I didn't have anybody waiting for me. I get off the plane, and you get off the plane, and they stand you up in formation in a gymnasium, and they have this big blue curtain, and then so you're standing there in formation facing the curtain. There's a podium in front of the curtain, and the ranking officer is standing there, and it just depends on who you came back with. And they give a little speech, and then they drop the curtain, and all the families are on the other side of the curtain. They come rushing in, and they give their it's the first time they've seen their loved ones, and they give them all. There's a lot of hugging, a lot of kissing, and a lot of crying. And the guys like me who didn't have families back home waiting for us, we were just kinda standing there with our dicks in our hands. We're just like, "Okay, so what the fuck do we do now?" And I'm standing there and I'm feeling kinda down because I'm feeling kinda lonely. My friends aren't there with me. And I feel his hand on my shoulder, and I turn around, and it's my buddy who had been sent home 4 months into the deployment because he lost his eye. And, so he looks at me and gives me this goofy ass grin, says, "Hey, buddy." And, so I gave him the giant hug. He says, "How about we go grab some
Oh,
beers?" And I'm like, "All right, let's go, man."
oh,
So we went to Hooters, um, and we ordered a few beers. And before we deployed, going to Hooters, we went to Hooters every Tuesday. And the reason that we went to Hooters every Tuesday is because Tuesday was trivia night. And the group of us, between us, we won almost every week. When we didn't win, we took second, and we won hundreds and hundreds of dollars in Hooters gift cards because we'd go eat for free. you know, we still had to spend you couldn't use gift cards on drinks. So we go eat for free, we'd drink, and we'd play trivia, and we do this every week. And so we're sitting in Hooters, and some of the guys aren't there because they're still on their way home from Afghanistan. Not everybody comes home at once. So they're still on their way home. They're still making their way back. But there was a couple of guys that were there with us every week that didn't make it. And I think that's when it really fucking hit me because it's like, that was the first time that we were there doing what we did, and they weren't there. They weren't going to be there. And I think that's the whole year of pain and loss, and you don't have a chance to mourn properly. And that was it's like the whole year of putting it off and putting it off, and I got to get my job done first. I can worry about this later. Well, now it's time to worry about it. You don't have a choice anymore. And because the war's over, at least your part in the war for now is over, and you're back home. and that's when it's just like a tidal wave. It hits you all at once, and yeah, it was an interesting choice of places to go, but that was our
Of
hangout.
course.
That was our hangout. So that's where we went, and and that
Okay,
was
going.
that was when it that's when it really set in, and that's when I think I really felt it for the first time. It's fucking. I don't remember most of the week that I got home because I was intoxicated the entire time. We're about to go into ads, so I'm going to wrap this up. But yeah, that was really.
Johnny said, okay, going to Hooters as the first place after being back home, being back at home cracked me up. I was just like, I thought you would have like said something else. Hooters just came out of nowhere.
Horace, it's
I'm
okay,
just
man. I'm
telling you.
I'm barely keeping it together myself, so it's all right.
Oh yeah, I cried twice within this whole stream, so don't worry.
All
You're
right,
Gucci.
Zomber, thanks for coming out, man. Have a good night.
Bye bye. Bye bye, Zomber. Thank you for the questions. I'm sure the Hooters part, like, cracked y'all up though, so.
All right. We are in ads right
Mm,
now, so we might wait for this question.
mm-mm,
I learned a while ago that crying isn't a weakness. I agree.
mm-hmm,
Call infantry stupid till they finally. It's funny you should mention that, Gore. Infantrymen, they call us stupid, they call us grunts, but we have some of the highest general technical scores in the military. My general technical score, for those of you who don't know, when you join when you're in high school and the Army's trying to get you
mm-hmm,
to join, they make you take a test called the ASVAB. And the ASVAB it stands for the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. And what it is to decide what job in the military you would be best suited for based on what you know. And
mm.
oh, you were okay, 0311. All right, all right. So Marine Corps, right? Um, so my general technical score was 135. Um, my lowest line score was 124. So being and I wasn't even the smartest guy in my unit. I was up there, but I wasn't even the smartest guy in my unit. So infantrymen are definitely not stupid, um, by a long shot. You know, I had a buddy who was a Marine. I took him out to eat one night. We went to Chili's or Applebee's or something like that, some sports bar. And so we get there, we get to the sports bar. The movies made them stupid. Maybe, maybe. Um, we went to a sports bar. It was me and my Marine buddy that um we get there and we get to the table and he asks if they've got any kids menus with the crayons, the coloring pages. And the waitress kind of looks at him funny, says, "Yeah." And he's like, "Can I get one?" She's like, "All right." She's like, "Yeah." And so she goes and she gets the thing, and it's one of those little bitty boxes of crayons. It's got 4 crayons in it and a coloring sheet. And she hands it to him, and he tears into it. He pulls out one of the crayons, and takes a big bite out of it. He says, "Ooh, appetizers," and he takes a giant bite out of the crown, and then he offers. He's like, "You want one?" I was like, "You fucking jarheads, you guys are fucking weird." Things we would talk about at the armory still gives laughs and things to think about. Yeah, yep.
I told you it's gonna be emotionally charged. I didn't think I was gonna make people cry today, but apologies if I do.
We built
We
different. Yeah,
built different, yeah. He actually just took a bite of a wait, hold up.
yep. He like bit off half the crown and then offered me one. He's like, "Ooh, appetizers."
Uh, sorry. I had to gag a little bit. What? Why? Is he
It's
like,
it's a running joke that Marines eat crayons, that they're all a little
why?
bit well, they're when the joke is that that Marines got the short end of the stick when it came to intelligence, and
Oh,
um,
so You're saying they're stupid.
They sell edible crayons for several years now. Yeah, I'm saying they're stupid. The stereotype is that they're stupid, and Marines are they're programmed to be arrogant. I mean, Army infantry is programmed to be arrogant pricks, but not like the Marine Corps. Like, they're conditioned to think that they're better than everybody, and they think that a lot of them think that the stereotype is hilarious, and they'll just run with it because fuck it, they're Marines, and they are built different, like Gore said. So, but yeah, they sell edible crayons for years now, yep.
Wait, what? Oh my god. Did he at least spit it out?
Nope,
Or did he
nope,
just
he ate it.
did he
He ate it, paper and all.
swallow? He put the wait, he ate the paper too?
Yep, they must be fun to hang out with. I've never had a bad time hanging out with Marines. I haven't
Oh,
done it
that
all
is
that often,
wild.
but it's always fun hanging out.
That is wild. Why was that even a stereotype though? Like what?
I don't know. Eating crayons is a sign of being, short end of
No,
the
I'm
stick.
just so stupid.
Yeah.
So, was there like a actual stereotype like that started for years on
I
end?
don't know. Pink says, "Wait." I'm not gonna wait. We got like 6 more questions to answer.
Six more questions? Oh, you think that's oh really? Where are we at, Doc?
I don't know. You're not supposed to eat
You-
crayons. Pink, no. You're not supposed to eat crayons,
Are they
and
at least tasty?
and you're supposed to change the batteries in your smoke detectors.
Oh, you gotta bring that up every time she comes into chat, huh?
Oh, I see. I love you, Pink, but they look so good. I know, those bright colors are so appetizing. I like the
Hi,
blue ones.
Pink. And a jar has started that business too, making millions. You gotta commit to the bit, cause we run into bullets with smiles. Wait. And they like stupid. You're not supposed to eat crayons. Oh, I see, but they look so good. Dot hyping thanks. Hi. I refuse to believe my marine buddies steered me wrong. Starts eating crayons. It's just like, oh, not like this. I've become. What have I become? Oh my god, you just make me laugh. Holy shit. He just like let me eat the paper and the fucking. Was the paper big? It couldn't be that big, right?
Has he ate a candle yet?
I don't want a
No,
crayon.
but
No, it tastes good.
the thing about candles, how can something smell so yummy and taste so gross? Anyway, should we continue with the questions? Zach says you should try a crayon, love.
No, no, please, not like this. I don't like. Should I just? I want to bite into like you know what's funny? This is so off topic. You're talking about candles smelling so tasty, but tasting so gross. Doc, have you eaten a candle before?
How about we move on to the next question, love?
Okay. Hi, Bluey.
Hi,
Welcome
Bluey.
in.
Welcome in.
Take that back. Red crayons taste great. Oh, I can make a business of tasty candle. Lol. I
I miss
dear
my buddies
lord.
after separating out of the Marine Corps. 3 of them didn't beat the demons. I know what you mean, man. I know what you mean. I was actually just part of Operation Resilience. Operation
Mm-hmm.
Resilience is a government program that's aimed at reducing veteran suicide. And one of the ways that they do that is every year they get
Mm.
they take a unit that's been hit particularly hard by veteran suicide, and they get them
Mm-hmm.
together for a reunion, and they do some special counseling with them and some team building activities, and I got to see all of the guys that I went all the guys that are still around that I went to Afghanistan with. I got to see a good portion of them and spend a weekend with them, and it was absolutely life changing. But I mean, the whole reason that they did it is because we've lost so many people over the years. We've as of earlier this year, we have officially lost more veterans from my battalion than we in to suicide than we lost to combat. So
Do you think the reason why they, do, do commit suicide is through, do you think it's because of PTSD and survivor's guilt, or do you think it's just a mix of like different things that they've gone through?
I think it's a lot of things. I think there's a number of things that contribute to it. I think that survivor's guilt is definitely a big part of it. PTSD is definitely a big part of it. I think that another big part of it is that when a veteran sets to do something, they set to do it. And it Thank you, Rex. I appreciate that. Um, I think that if you were to compare the number of suicide attempts to
Mm-hmm.
successful suicides, I think you would find that a much larger
Mm-hmm.
percentage of veterans who attempt suicide are successful, um,
Mm-hmm.
because because of that fact. I think that a large
Mm-hmm.
part of it is because they're first of all, there's a huge thank you for the follow, Bluey. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that a large part of it is because they feel abandoned. You get out of the military, you get almost no support. There's a huge stigma about seeking
Mm-hmm.
mental health help. And guys, if you need help, please, 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 for the love of God, do not hesitate to reach out. Um, 988 National Suicide Hotline. They will get you in touch. If you're a veteran, there's a phone tree that will get you in touch with somebody who specializes with veterans. Um, and they will help you out. They will get you in touch with somebody who can help you out. I started going to therapy about 4 years ago now, and it has completely changed my life. Asking for help is not a weakness. It takes more strength to ask for help than it does to suffer in
Mm-hmm.
silence. It takes more
I agree.
courage to say, "Hey, I can't do this by myself," than it does to try. So
Yeah.
please, if you're struggling, get reach out, get help. If you can't get professional help, find a friend. I have a list of 3 people that if I'm struggling, I know I can call them at any time, on any day, no matter what, and they'll pick up. And I know that, and I'm very fortunate. I know that, but abandoned and trained for 4 to 5 years to have a binary. Yep, yep. So, and then it also doesn't help the way that the war turned out. A lot of people, a lot of veterans, myself included, really struggled with that. When the war in Afghanistan ended the way that it did, seeing the Taliban parading around in Kabul and Kandahar in U.S. military equipment, sporting U.S. Weapons, and uh, a lot of people are like, "Man, what was it for? Why did we do it? What did I give up? Everything, why?" Um, and they felt like it was all for nothing. And it wasn't for nothing, guys. I'm not gonna say that it was worth it because to my mind it wasn't, but we did make a difference. And felt like the things we did and the people we lost meant nothing. That's exactly right. Um, but it did mean something. And I've told this story before. I'm gonna do a quick summary of it. But I met a gentleman, a couple years ago who was from Afghanistan. He migrated to the United States with his daughters, in the early years of the war, and, he saw my Afghanistan campaign ribbon on the back of my car. He asked me if I had served in Afghanistan. I told him that I did. Recapture of Fallujah hit a lot of military hard. Yes, it did. I told him that I did, and he gave me a hug, and he thanked me, and he said, My oldest daughter is a doctor, and my youngest daughter is graduating from university next year, and they would not have been able to do that in Afghanistan. and we would not be able to have the life that we have if it weren't for people like you. And thank you, Rax, for the subscription. I really appreciate it. Welcome in. I'm glad to have you. I'm hoping you're enjoying our little podcast. Um, and there are a lot of people who came here during the war and who got out of Afghanistan. And for 20 years, people who had better lives because of what we were doing. And I'm not going to say that it was worth it because it wasn't. In the end, you know, the Taliban got the country back. Um, but it did it that doesn't mean that it didn't matter. I read a story, a blog, I don't know, a post, whatever you want to call it, one time where this guy, he was an Afghanistan local and an army, Afghanistan born army veteran, U.S. Army veteran who served in Afghanistan, and he was beating himself up about the way that the war turned out. And one of his friends, who happened to be an oncologist, which is a cancer specialist, he said, "Let me ask you something." He said, um, the thing about cancer is that it's touched everybody. Is like you've either had it or you've known someone who's had it. And he said, "So let me ask you, um if you got to spend 20 more years with a loved one that you lost to cancer, if you had gotten to spend 20 more years with them, and then the cancer, you know, the cancer, they had cancer, it went into remission, you got 20 more years with them, the cancer came back and they died from it 20 years later. Would you say that it was a failure? Would you say that it was a failure treating them for the cancer the first time around because the cancer ultimately killed them in the end when you got 20 more years with that person than you would have gotten otherwise?" He said, "Alleviating suffering is never in vain." And that really spoke to me. And I hope for any veterans who might be listening, I hope that speaks to you too, because um I don't feel like it was worth it. I don't feel like the sacrifices that we made were worth were the price we paid was worth the outcome. But I do know that we did make a difference, and that's got to be enough. That's got to be enough, and that's something to hold on to and to remember always because it did matter. And yeah, it didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to, but that doesn't mean that there aren't people whose lives are better because of. So
Mm-mm-mm.
anyway, shall we continue?
Ow, I slapped my hand. That helped.
I'm glad. That
Oh,
means a lot to hear that, Gore. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
what the fuck? Where am I at? Oh, question 12. Sorry. I'm out of it. Um, wow, we've been yapping for 2 hours and 47 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so for question number 12, how are you mentally after the war and after you came back to your special not after you came back to the after you came back, right? Since you have to become a civilian and live like a normal civilian, how are you mentally?
Um, that's a complicated question with a complicated answer. I got back and I tried to pretend for almost 10 years that I was okay. You know, I was like, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't have PTSD. I'm mentally healthy. I'm physically healthy. I'm in really good shape. Um, and then and people told me, "No, you no, the fuck you're not." I had my closest friends were like, "Dude, you're not okay." He's like, "You need help." I'm like, "I don't need help. I'm fine. I don't need help. I'm fine." And when you bottle it up like that, when you live in denial like I did, and that's what exactly what it was. I was living in denial. I didn't want to admit that I wasn't okay and that I needed help. Eventually the top's gonna pop and it's gonna fuck you up. And I spiraled out of control very quickly. I tried to quit the main menu. I tried to quit twice. Um, and both times I failed, thank God. And uh, after the first time, it's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I need to change some things because I'm not okay. And I started getting help. I started getting therapy. And I started improving almost immediately, uh, and continued to improve. But it's not it's an uphill battle, and you'll stumble and you'll fall, and that's when it's the most dangerous, I feel like, because when you feel like you're getting better and you feel like you're getting better and you feel like you're doing better and you're moving in the right direction, and then you have a setback and you feel like it was all for nothing. And you're like, man, I'm never going to get better, and then start to get despair. My relationship, my 7-year relationship with my ex, came to an end. I was homeless. I was really depressed. The war in Afghanistan had just ended the way that it did, and I was in a really dark place when I had my second attempt. And after that, uh, I uh, I talked to my doctor, and I was able to get some help. Eventually, I did get back on my feet, and as time passed, I started to realize that that all of those things that I thought that I couldn't do, I was doing them. Um, and my doctor said something, or my therapist rather said so. He's like, yeah, you may have slipped, you may have tripped, you may have fallen. But he said, but I want you to look back on where you were a couple of years ago, and I want you to think about where you were a couple of years ago, before you started this journey, compared to where you are now, even after you've tripped and stumbled, and tell me you're not in a better place than you were a couple of years ago. And he was absolutely right. He's like, yeah, I tripped and I fell and I lost some of the progress that I'd made, but I didn't lose all of it. And yeah, maybe I took 3 steps backwards, but that was after taking 5 steps forwards. And I'm still moving forward. And yeah, it's not going as fast as I wanted it to, but I needed to be patient. And I started, for the first time in my adult life, really, I was living on my own. I was living without any sort of help, any sort of assistance, got my own place, started taking care of myself. And, and then, uh, so while I was homeless, um, I spent a lot of time scrolling Facebook, because I didn't have anything else to do. I was living in my car. My phone was really the only source of entertainment that I had when I wasn't at work. Um, And so I spent a lot of time on my phone watching YouTube videos, playing around on Facebook, playing phone games, things like that. I had money. I was still working. I was still making money. I was still doing okay, financially. I just had lost my home. And it took a long time for me to be able to find a place that I could afford to move into that would accept me. And, so there for about 2.5 months, I was living in my car. And I remember seeing this VTuber, that always had these ridiculous little, reels on Facebook, and I didn't know what VTubers were at the time. I just thought that there was this cute anime girl with witty little one-liners, and, I always looked forward to seeing them because they made me laugh, and at a time like that when I wasn't laughing very often. And, and then, earlier this year, yeah, it's still yeah. So earlier this year, I stumbled into Twitch for the first time in a very long time. I'd watched, my ex was a streamer on Twitch, for a while, and so I did have an account, but I hadn't followed anybody other than her, and my account had been dormant for a very long time. And so I stumbled back into my old Twitch account, and I started following a VTuber that I had seen on YouTube, and started tuning into her streams, and when she wasn't online, I'd start looking around for similar content, and ended up getting involved in some VTuber communities until I mean, sort of getting adopted, um, by some of those communities, and everybody has been very positive and supportive, especially in the Apokai group. Like, the Apokai group is all about positivity and inclusion, and everybody is so unbelievably supportive of each other that it just blows my mind every day. I'm so proud to be a part of it. But that helped me in a very strange way. And I know it's silly because it's fucking VTubers and video games and streaming. But I felt like I was a part of a community again. And and that really helped me too because I was kind of struggling to find my place. Yeah, I had the people that I worked with, and I love the people that I work with. They're a great group. I work in healthcare. I work in a hospital, intensive care unit. Right after, right after I started working, shortly after I started working in the hospital, I guess it was a couple of years after I started working at the hospital. Hey, Cosmos, it's just the people and interacting with people is still something. Yep. At the end of the day, absolutely. And I'm not trying to sound like parasocial or anything like that. It wasn't so much it was just the community. It was just, people coming together because of something that they were all interested in that really kind of helped me the most. I'm not sitting here pretending like there are relationships that have formed that haven't actually formed or anything like that. I mean, I did meet Hanako, which has been awesome also. But same dude was always into anime, so VTubers was an odd segue, but seeing veterans getting into it and able to converse with them was nice. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So and I'm hearing, and you're not the first person that I've heard that from. You're not the first veteran that I've heard that from. Um, it's given me kind of a place to hang out and be a part of a community again without having to deal with all of the stressors that come with being in a part of a community. Um, and you know, I was onto something. I I worked through COVID in the hospital. I worked in the ICU, worked in a COVID ICU. So that that did a number on me too. But again, I was in a situation, a really shitty situation with a really great group of people and we bonded over that. So the people that I work with are really special to me too, almost the same degree of the people that I went to Afghanistan with. So I'm not saying that I'm not a complete loner that doesn't interact with the outside world. I've got some great friends, but being a part of a community like this has definitely been a huge boon because like I said, um, you get you get that kind of communal effect without all of the stressors of having to go out and actually interact with people physically. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting the way that things have played out. But I feel like the last year has definitely been the best year mental health wise since I got out of the military. And the last few months especially since I started working with a Pokai because it's given me a a project. It's given me something to put my time and my effort towards, which helps a lot too. What we talking growing we are talking about Afghanistan. We're actually talking about the war. We just kind of went off on a little mental health segue. But but yeah, we're talking about the war. So come on in, have a seat, make yourself comfortable.
My ass is hurting. Okay. Sorry.
No,
That
you're
is
good. You're
so
good.
random. I'm so sorry.
A Pokai, it's Opokai. It is a group of about 20 small VTubers that have come together to kind of try to help each other out and lift each other up, um, share experiences, share ideas, and things like that. So I'm not an actual member of a Pokai as a talent, but I am one of the managers over there. So uh, they're I'm pretty close with what's over there. So yeah.
Mm. If you guys go to my channel, there is a little section in the about me about all the talents that we have in the Pokai. These are not a VTuber agency, we're a VTuber group.
No, we're not trying to be the next Bisojo. We're not a company. We're not an agency. We're more like a club. Um, we're just
Cool
a group
Kids
of
Club,
we're
am I
just a,
right?
we're just a group of VTubers that are trying to help each other out. It's all about supporting each other and sharing ideas and stuff like that. So it's a big group. Yeah, there's about 20 talents and then about half a dozen staff members like myself. And then we've got a moderation team that kind of helps out too. So it is a lot of
It's a
fun.
really cool, it's a cool place. I know, right? How do you join?
Uh,
uh,
Pink,
Mama, Pink will be the in charge of that, but we aren't really looking for talents right now as Gen 1 is pretty
So
much full.
Pink is in the chat. So Pink Wonderland is the founder, and she's the one that's really in charge of recruiting. So you would have to talk to her about that. We're not in a position to really talk. So, but I'm not
EE. Also, we won't. I don't think we can take talents right now.
awesome
Um,
sauce.
Come, Mama, come. Come to us. Join the chaos. Become the chaos. Okay, I need to stop. I
You're
think
good.
I'm gonna scare her. I think I think I'm gonna scare her away. Okay, going back to the candle.
Why are we going back to the
Doc,
candle?
have you bitten out of a
I
candle? I'm just
I thought we were talking about Afghanistan, not candles.
You said, you know what? I'll ask later because like how the fuck are you how the fuck do you know what candles taste like?
Anyway,
Silence. Okay.
we still got a lot of questions to get to.
Um, 7 more. We got this. Anyways, I know you were talking about how you found VTubers when you were, in a current situation that was not, you know, very the best for you. I was you already explained it, but my question number 13, how did you manage to keep yourself sane? Like, but you've already mentioned like getting help and
Hmm.
therapy and also like finding VTubers to be, you know,
Not not necessarily VTubers. Find a hobby. Get like I said, therapy is super important. Medication, don't be, I'm on a couple of different medications for my PTSD. Um, and at first I was really hesitant to take meds, but I let my doctor talk me into it. But the biggest thing is find a hobby, find a couple of hobbies, find something you can exert your effort into and have something to show for it after. I got into before I got into VTubing, I got into model ship building. I love building plastic models. I love especially battleships and stuff. So I got into that, and I really and that gave me a productive um, outlet that when I was finished with it, I had something to show for it. Um, and that and find your tribe. You know, there are what's my favorite ship? That's a tough one because I've got a lot of favorite ships. My favorite ship of all time is probably the Enterprise, the USS Enterprise, um, because of its history. But I really like the look of the old battleships, the German Bismarck and Tirpitz, even their heavy cruisers, which look very similar, like their Admiral Hipper class heavy cruisers. Prinz Eugen is really fascinating to me, even though it didn't really do anything in the war. Um, the Iowa class battleships are pretty cool too. So really just about any of the battleships from the World War II era, and it doesn't even matter really which country. I think the coolest looking is probably uh, well, I don't even know how to pronounce the Richelieu. Richelieu. I don't know how to pronounce. It's a French battleship. I really like that one. I think it's a gorgeous ship. So
I'm I'm
not the
so
USS
sorry.
Texas. I have been aboard the USS Texas, and it is a beautiful ship. It is the only one that I've actually seen. Well, it's the only one that I've ever been on. I've seen the USS New Jersey, but tours were closed, so I couldn't actually go aboard it. One of the superior officers I had was a veteran. He told me that a hobby is very important to deal with trauma. For him, it was reading a book and collecting, cooking, and golf. Exactly.
Mm,
Thank you, Joni. Yeah,
mm,
having a hobby is everything. I prefer to have a hobby that I have something to show, like I can physically see my progress, which is why
mhm.
reading and stuff like that really didn't do it for me. But once I got
Mhm.
into building the plastic models and, you start out with these pieces of gray plastic, and then when you're finished, you have these really cool looking model ships. Um, Firearms, yeah, I'm leery about directing people towards firearms, though. If that's your thing, then great. I enjoy it myself, but, it's really not for everybody. So,
I want to note though, hobbies are important. I don't really like recommending people to get firearms if they're still not mentally stable enough to get one. That's my opinion to me. Yeah, yeah, Taurus, we get yeah. It's like it's not for everyone. It works for some people, but it's not for everyone. But I don't think if you are like mentally ready and mentally not there, you shouldn't get
I'm
guns.
I'm gonna add on
I
I'm gonna add on to that.
mhm
So I'm not gonna say that whether you're mentally ready or mentally there to get guns is not my place to say. What I will
mm
say
mm mm
is you may be okay today and not okay tomorrow. If you choose to
mhm
have firearms, regardless of if you're a veteran or not, I don't care what your situation is. If you choose to own firearms, have a fucking plan. There is an organization, a lot of gun ranges and gun stores take part in it, where they will store
mhm
your firearms for free,
mhm
no questions asked. And so if that's an option for you, if not, have a friend that you can
mhm
call and say, "Hey, man, I really don't think I should have these in my house right now." Um,
mhm
I'm not saying don't get firearms. If firearms are your thing, get a firearm, go for it, have fun, knock yourself out. Have a plan for if because you
mhm
don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I don't care if you've got trauma or not. I don't care what kind of person you are. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And you may need a situation where you need to get your guns out of your house. And it may not even be for you. It may be for somebody else. You don't know. So but this organization that my gun range is a part of, I can take my guns there. If I'm going to be out of state, I can take my guns there and say, "Hey, I'm going to be traveling. I don't feel like leaving these guns in my home." And I can leave them
mhm
there. Or if I'm having some mental health crisis and I'm thinking that maybe I'm not safe to have these guns, um,
mhm
then I can bring them there and say, "Hey, can you hold on to these for me a few days?" They're not going to ask any questions. They're not going to care. They will hold on to them for me, and they'll do it for free. So I can't remember the name of the program, but a lot of gun ranges and gun stores do take part in that. So look into something like that. At the very least, have a friend or a family member who's okay with keeping your guns in their house for a period of time if you need them to, because because when one thing that they've learned about these veteran suicides, these successful veteran suicides, is most people
mhm
aren't suicidal. The act of
mhm
suicide is an impulse, and if you can get them
mhm
to hesitate for a moment, you
mhm
significantly decrease the likelihood of them committing suicide. And sometimes it can be
mhm
just a matter of putting your guns in a safe, and that couple of seconds that it takes to put the combination into your safe, um, can be the
mhm
difference between whether or not you go through with it. So, have a plan, safe
mhm
storage, and
mhm
if you need to get them out of your house, be strong enough to say, "Hey, these need to not be in my house right now." I've fucking done it. I've had my brother I've been like, "Hey, bro, I gotta get these out of my house for a little bit. Can you hold on to them?" He's like, "Absolutely." I've also used the program at the gun store. I didn't use it for that. I used it because I was traveling out of state and I didn't feel comfortable leaving my guns at my home, even in a safe.
mhm
But yeah, absolutely. Just make sure you have a plan. Make sure you're safe. You want guns? Have guns. Just make sure you're safe. So
mm
yeah,
mm
and I
mm
did read about the USS Texas getting restored. They did a beautiful job on it. So that was really great to see. The USS Texas is a tremendous battleship with a very rich history. I believe it's the only battleship left in existence that fought in both world wars, and they literally sank it at D-Day so that they could keep their guns on target longer, which is another really cool story. So,
mm mm
yep, absolutely growing. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. Alright.
Also, your gut feelings too.
Yep.
So if you feel like you have a gut feeling of like I don't want these in my house, you should probably take the act to do it.
Yep.
What am I at? Number 14. Six more to go. Oh dear God. We're 3 hours
Give me
in.
just a
Okay.
second. I need another bottle of water. I'm talking a lot tonight. Give me just a sec.
You know, I should probably get some water. I don't think he can hear. I think he can. I don't know if he can hear me, but I haven't drinking water today.
Drink
I
some
don't want to
fucking
get
water,
up.
Hana.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I thought you weren't here. That is wild. I was about to say I'm too lazy to get up and get water in my water bottle, but I need to take meds, but I don't want to get up. Gonna get kidney stones at that rate. Oh dear lord. Hydrating is important. Oh dear god. I'll be right back. I get water. Because Chad is yelling at me.
Alright. I am back. Stretch just in case. Yep. 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 Definitely stretched. I know it's cliche, but it's better to be safe than sorry, or even worse, too dead to be sorry. Yep. Absolutely. And thank you for the hydrate and the stretch. I would go redeem a hydrate and a stretch on Hana's channel, but I spent all my points on Ara Ara. So
Okay. I returned
all
the
right, welcome
whole
back.
bottle of water. I don't have a mini fridge. Hydrate or die is wild.
Like that. Yep.
Unfortunately, if I had a mini fridge, then I would be keeping other drinks other than water in. We don't have water bottles. So,
All right.
anyways.
Shall we keep this ball rolling? Got it. I know what to redeem on her channel now.
Oh dear god, oh dear god.
All right. Shall we continue?
Yes,
All right.
after I take my meds. Got it. Okay, so 14th. No, question number 14. After the army, how did you look at life after facing the war?
Well, I don't really have much to compare to. My life before the war, I was pretty young. I was in school. I joined the army pretty much immediately after graduating high school. So there's a lot of separation between my life before the war, my life during the army, and my life since the army. That I can't really say how it's changed. Um, so I really don't know how to answer that because it's uh it's kind of complicated. I mean, I went from being a high schooler to being a soldier to being adult living. They're three completely different, vastly different situations. So I I I definitely I definitely have kind of a dark sense of humor. I definitely look at things a little bit on the darker side. Um, and I definitely don't take things as seriously. And it's been difficult. It's difficult on my social relationships because like um I'm used to being gone. I'm used to being gone. I'm used to not being around. So being away from people that I care about, I could not talk to somebody for months and be okay. Um, whereas, when I don't talk to somebody for months, they think that I don't care about them anymore, which isn't true. It's just, I'm I'm broken. that part of me doesn't work the way that it used to because of the situations that I've been. Death doesn't have the same effect on me that it used to. I'm kind of calloused when it comes to that, um, which probably helps a little bit in my current line of work because people die a lot in the ICU. It's sad, but it's a fact. They're in the ICU because they're very, very sick, and a lot of them don't. So I kind of half jokingly say that I've had a very close relationship with death my entire adult life. And because of that, I don't look at it the same way that a lot of people do. The same with goodbyes. Um, you know, I just I don't I don't feel the same way about it that a lot of people do. Um, and people come and go in your life all the time. Uh, and you know, you just kind of move on. And I move on probably in a healthy, fast rate. Yeah, death is simply a part of life. And when you get exposed to enough, you tend to get numb to it. I don't know. I definitely have a darker, maybe bleaker outlook on life than most people, but otherwise, I'm really not all that different. I go to work, I do my job, I come home, I hang out with my friends. I still I still I still feel like my life is relatively normal. I just kind of, you know, I just kind of tend to look at it through a darker shade. Building ships, yeah, building ships.
Oh, sorry. I'm eating apples.
Okay.
So, question number 15. This goes to your therapy thingy. After you were discharged, did you go to therapy right away, or did you just deny having mental health issues, thinking that, like, I know you said you were, when you got back, you thought you were fine, but you really weren't.
Mm. I've already answered that. I was in
Mm-hmm.
denial of my mental health condition for many, many years, until things got really bad,
Mm-hmm.
and I finally was forced to get help. So I don't think that we need to spend any more time on that subject.
Mm-mm-mm. I was that fucking. If you're comfortable, what were you diagnosed with?
I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and depression secondary to post traumatic stress disorder.
Sorry. I'm chewing. Question 17 was how was therapy and where are you with your mental right now?
Well, I think I've already kind of touched on where I'm at mentally. Therapy was difficult. The first thing that
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to try was what they call prolonged exposure therapy, which was really
Mm-hmm.
fucking hard because essentially what you do is you go into the office every two
Mm-hmm.
weeks,
Mm-hmm.
preferably every week, but with it being the
Mm-hmm.
VA, they couldn't that was not feasible. So every 2 weeks I went in, and I essentially relived the worst day of my life over and over and over
Mm-hmm.
again with my therapist, and
Mm-hmm.
I found and you know, there's a lot of mixed reviews when it comes to prolonged exposure therapy. A lot of people say that it worked wonders for them. A lot of people say
Mm-hmm.
that it was actually more traumatic and made them worse. So it's kind of a mixed bag. For me, I
Mm-hmm.
found that as I talked about it more with my therapist, and I've talked about this in some of my previous stuff, but I found that the more I talked about things with my therapist, the less power those things had over me. And eventually I got comfortable talking with people outside of therapy. I was able to kind of open up to my family a little bit about what I went through. I was able to open up to some of my close friends. And eventually it got to the point where I don't cringe when people I don't cringe as much when people ask cringy questions. You know, I'll correct and be like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey man, you probably shouldn't ask that because that can be triggering," or "Hey man, that's really not appropriate to ask." But it doesn't bother me like it used to. Like, it used to really bother
Mm-hmm.
me. It used to bother me for quite a while. Like, somebody asking me some stupid ass question, some stupid ignorant question like, "Hey, man, have you ever killed anybody?" would ruin my entire day. Like, that would fuck up my entire day. And now it's less of a big deal. It's like, I get it. I understand that you're curious, but that's really inappropriate to have, and just leave it at. So I know here it's a little bit different. We're going to dig into the inappropriate stuff, and that was kind of the idea about this podcast was to dig into that stuff because people are curious, understandably curious, and um, I don't feel the same way about it that I used to for me personally. But I also recognize that for a lot of people, like that kind of stuff will fuck them up. So I want to satisfy people's curiosities, and I want to give them the chance to ask some of the taboo questions that they're not supposed to ask. Um, but under normal circumstances, it would be completely inappropriate stuff.
Okay. So, question number 18. I think you went over this again. What helped you calm down if you're down or just mentally exhausted?
When I figure that out, I'll let you know. Um,
Mm-mm. Mm.
so I mean, everybody has bad days. Everybody has
Mm.
triggers. Everybody has shit that they're dealing with. Everybody has trauma, whether we admit it or not. And there are so many different things to help people cope that work for some people and don't work for others. I've done grounding techniques. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Sometimes the only thing that really helps is just getting the fuck away from everybody for a while and just you know letting it safely, letting it do its thing, letting it take its course. Um, I like I said, I'm on a couple of different medications that are helping with that a lot. I went through several years of therapy that have helped with that a lot. I've learned grounding techniques and coping skills that help with it a lot. But when none of that works, um, sometimes the best thing you can do is make sure that you're safe first and foremost. Make sure that it's safe, and make sure that you're safe. And once you do that, you just got to let it take its course in a safe way. So um, it's not easy living with mental health, behavioral health issues is really difficult. It's a thing that not everybody, that most people can't see. They don't know that you're going through it. They don't understand it. If even if they did know you were going, they wouldn't understand it, and that makes it really hard. But it is something that you can live with. It is something that you can overcome. And yeah, you probably aren't going to be able to cure it, but you can learn to live with it, and you can learn ways to mitigate its impact on your. You just have to be willing to take that step and ask for help. Because that's the biggest thing is you got to be willing to take that step, and it's fucking hard, guys. It's fucking hard to take that step sometimes, like to recognize that you're not going to be able to do this on your own. So that would be what I would have to say about. What else you got?
Sorry, I'm still chewing. Um, number 19. How did or how does a Pokai slash streaming help you?
I mean, I kind of already touched on this a little bit. Apokai is wonderful. Apokai has been an amazing addition to my life, and that's not to say I wasn't doing well when I got here because I was doing pretty well when I got here. Like I said, the last year or so has been a good um, experience for me. It's been a really good year. It even comes in unexpected ways. A music video about Apex showed a man running towards an objective and getting sniped in the heart. I had to walk for 10 miles to calm down. Yep, yep. I've had some crazy shit. I've had some crazy shit fuck me up the same way. I'm not going to get into it right now. I'm going to answer this question, but maybe here in a little bit I'll dig into that. Um, where was I? Oh yeah, a Pokai. But the thing about a Pokai, the thing that really amazes me about a Pokai and makes me so excited to be a part of it is just how fucking supportive everybody. Like, you go into if you were to set foot in one of our chat rooms and you just see everybody just being so, like, supportive and caring and understanding and just going out of their way to lift each other up. And there's just not enough of that in the world. If there was more people like the talents and staff over at Pokai in the world, we wouldn't be having this conversation because there wouldn't be any need for soldiers like me. They're just such an amazing group, and I absolutely do not feel like I belong with them, but I am so glad that I am part of that group of been as well supportive of me as they have.
I was a mirroring. Mm.
Situations, but okay. I appreciate that. I appreciate being open about it. I know it's not easy to talk about this stuff. But back to what you were saying, since we are in an ad break for another 60 seconds, back to what you were saying. I was in a Walmart parking lot just a couple of days ago, and I was talking to my ex, and we were just talking, and a car ran over a plastic cup, uh, or something plastic. I couldn't tell what it was, but it ran over a plastic cup, and it made a very distinct sound when it ran over it. It was a plastic bottle or something like that, and yeah, that sent me traveling through space and time. Um, and yeah, it took the rest of the night to kind of come down from that. But my first experience with that was, again, it was a really fucking weird situation. It was triggered a memory. Yeah, exactly. But my first experience with that was, a sudden loud noise causing a flashback really isn't all that surprising. But my first experience with that, I had been back in the States for a couple months, and I was riding in my buddy's car, and he ran a red light, and the camera up on the light pole took his picture, and the flash from the camera had me fucking curling up under the fucking dashboard. Like, it freaked me the fuck out. And that was my first experience with a flashback and with a traumatic event like that, a trigger like that, I should say. So it freaked me out for more than just because of the flashback itself, but because I had never had one before, and was it caught me so completely off guard, and it was such a weird thing to fuck me up like that. Because it was literally getting our picture taken because he ran a fucking red light like a dumbass. So, another time, something similar. This was about a year ago. I was on my way home from my parents' house, and there's a little small town that I have to drive through to get back to where I live, and they've got a railroad track that runs through it. And I'm pulling up, going over the railroad tracks, and it's pretty late at night. The sun is down. It's really dark because we're out in the country, and you don't have all the lighting and stuff. And all of a sudden, all of the fucking warning lights on the railroad tracks started lighting up. And that was another one. That was another time that it kind of tripped me out a little bit, sent me back. So loud bangs and flashing lights apparently really do it for me. Had a flashback triggering playing a game. Yep, yep. I've had that happen too. Um, it wasn't as severe. It wasn't as intense, but it did happen. The game was Far Cry 4. It was the very first time I played Far Cry 4, and it was the opening scene where you have to run from the castle to the truck, and that caused a little bit of a flashback. Stay away. See, raves are a little bit different because it's not a sudden flash of light that you're not expecting. It's not like epilepsy where blinking lights will trigger you. It's the sudden darkness and then not darkness anymore. So it's a little bit different. I used to go to raves when I was younger. I didn't really enjoy them, but I had a friend that was really into them, and she wanted me to go with her, and so I went with her. And I don't know. It was okay, but that didn't bother me. So, all right. Looks like we are back from ads, so we can probably keep going.
Last question. Oh my god, finally. Woohoo. I'm okay. So,
Uh,
what would you do if you didn't meet all of us? What
I
would your. Go ahead.
I mean, I can't say that I would really be, I can't I'd probably be where I was before, I hanging out. I mean, I was doing okay. Like I said, the last year has been the best since I got home. Um, as far as my mental health was concerned, I was already in a pretty good place when I stumbled into a pokai, and I'm doing a lot better since, but I wasn't in a bad place when I got here. I was doing pretty well, so I think I would still be doing okay. Maybe not as well as I am now, but I would definitely be doing all right. I'm active in some other communities, um, online. I've got friends here, that that I can, I'm not in a bad. I wasn't in a bad, so I think I would probably be.
Let me take a breather. You were doing well, now you're doing better. I
Why are you
agree,
why are
Mama.
you all echoey now?
No idea. Wait, am I? Oh. Sorry.
You're good.
It was the stream together thing that kind of disconnected. Sorry. I uh
Yeah, I was doing well, now I'm doing better. That's absolutely right, mama.
Mama. Okay, we're done with the questions. Oh god. It's really cold, so if I sniffle, I'm sorry, and I would like to ask you what you thought of of the podcast.
You may have walked a different path than some others and feel abnormal. What I see as a living person who feels things, breathes just as I do. While we're all our own individuals, we're all still here. Of course, that includes you, Doc. You may see a broken negativity, but I think it's all about perspective. Being broken is only a bad thing when you're aware of it and don't think about it. The beauty of being absolutely growing. I agree 100%. And thank you so much for saying that. Um, I appreciate it. So sorry for the plot. It's okay, man. It's all right. That's what we're here. That's what we're here for tonight. So Lord knows I've been talking a lot. Um,
Oh, he been yapping.
so are you asking me about what I think? Or are you asking chat on it?
Both of you guys. What y'all think about the podcast and what should we improve in the future? Oh god, shit. My nose. And also if you guys have any suggestions on names for the podcast as well.
Or any last minute questions that you didn't get the answer to? I'd be happy to answer one or two more before we call it quits for the night. It was fun. Good. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Very good. Glad. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying. Will there be more in the
Yes.
future? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hana.
Oh yes, Mama, there will be. It's just the scheduling conflicts might take some getting used to. So maybe.
Any good army prank? Man, we did so many pranks. I mean, we did everything. We tied up an LT and left him in the shower one night. We would convince privates to go find the things that didn't exist. We had one go ask an E6 for a prick E6. I mean, um, I don't even know. Like, there's so many. I think
Oh.
um,
Mhm.
it's hard to say. I mean, we without being in the military, you probably wouldn't understand some of the jokes. But a lot of it, um, are kind of like telling somebody to change their blinker fluid, except army style. Uh, as a retired staff sergeant, I resemble that remark. Yep, yep. So, any prank on me? I didn't. I didn't get pranked very much when I was in. I was fortunate enough to be in a brand new unit full of brand new people, so the pranking didn't really start until after. Um, other than um, other than I mean, the closest thing to somebody ever really pranking me really well in the army was when um, oh good grief, I don't even know. It was good and enlightening. I know vets have struggles, but now I have a better picture. I need a left-handed screwdriver, doc. Absolutely, yep, a left-handed screwdriver. You know, it's funny you should mention that. My grandfather once convinced a store clerk that he needed a left-handed pitchfork. Um, she was really freaked out that she couldn't find one. Oh, okay, army pranks. So this one's a good one. Um, I told you guys about my buddy who lost his eye, and yeah, he's a goofball. But we went to a Goodwill store a few days after we got home from Afghanistan. We were looking for I don't remember what he was looking for. And he didn't have his prosthetic eye yet. He hadn't had one. He hadn't had it made yet. So he was wearing an eye patch, and he convinced the clerk at the store that he lost his prosthetic eye somewhere in the store, and if she found it, to give him a call, and gave her his phone number. So, and this poor thing was torn between absolutely appalled that somebody lost their eye in the store. Thank you for the hydrate. And just absolutely mortified and trying to find his eye, and at the same time kind of grossed out because she was looking for a literal eyeball that somebody had lost in the store. But it was her reaction, like she was just the color drained out of her face and her hands were shaking and she was freaking out. And he's just sitting here just stone faced telling this poor young woman that that he had misplaced his eye and that if she found it to give him a call. And it was all I could do not to bust up laughing like and ruin the whole thing. So um I want to repeat the fact that Hanako should do her best to stay hydrated for health. Yes, agree. Go to pranks. FNGs for grid squares, keys to the impact area, and exhaust sample. Yep. Grid squares. M203 blank firing adapters, M9 blank firing adapters, prick E6 or a prick 03, things like that. Yep, we did all of those. Did she call him at least? I don't know. I don't know if she ever called him or not. I hope so. I doubt it.
Zach said mean but very funny. I'm just like, what the that is wild. Is there any other questions or at least suggestions for our name? Oh shit.
I kind of like unorthodox, but we
Orthodox.
gotta get Hanako tied into that somehow. Yeah, this podcast we'd like to make the podcast a regular thing, not necessarily this subject. We're going to cover a variety of subjects, but we would like to make it a regular thing, and we need a name for our podcast. We had some pretty good suggestions early on in the chat, so early on in the stream. So I'm sure we can come up with something. Yeah, it was
terrible.
but
Anyways, I think we call it quits for tonight.
all
We've
right,
been going
guys.
at it for 3.5.
I hope that all of you enjoyed our little chat tonight. I hope that everybody gets to take something away from it. H and VVT pods. What's that stand for? Hanako and Whiskers and Wings, Tales of a Neko and a Demon. That's not bad. Whiskers and Wings, that could work. Story time with Doc. Yeah, that could work too. I'd like to incorporate Hanako a little bit more. Good night, Taurus. Good night, guys. Um, Hanako and a veteran VTuber. I'm not a veteran VTuber. I'm a brand new VTuber who happens to be a veteran. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming out.
Predictable.
Hanako's got to get up early tomorrow, so we gotta wrap things up for the night. We already kind of went over what we had planned on going, so I appreciate you guys coming out. I hope that everybody took something away from this. I hope everybody had a good time, and I hope to see all of you guys again. I had a lot of
Bye
fun.
bye.
Uh, it was emotional, but the questions didn't hit as hard as I expected, so I appreciate that. And you got anything, Hanako?
I'm tired.
All right. Well,
Good night, everybody.
good night, everyone.
Oh wait, who are we rating though?
That is a good question. Are we both rating the same person, or should we?
We should rate the same person.
Okay.
Da.
Well,
Do you have anyone?
I'm looking right now. Give me just a moment.
Yeah.
Scarlet Bell is on.
Aeon's friend, right?
Yeah, Aeon's friend. Or Jazz.
Who's Jazz?
Jazz is one of my viewers that's in here somewhat regularly.
You can do
They've only got
Jazz.
they've only got one viewer. Looks like they're doing a collab. Oh, playing with viewers. Well, let's do that one. Let's do Jazz. They're playing Stranova with chat. So let's rate out to them. So
Yippee! I hope Gengar wasn't staring at you guys too intently. You know, the more I looked at him, the more he was just staring into my soul.
I probably should have actually checked on them, make sure that they're doing stuff.
Nah, he cute. What do you mean cute? I mean, he is cute, but he's staring into our souls, no?
I love my emotional support Gengar.
He has a Togepi and he doesn't use it. He just likes his Gengar.
She's really
Gengar,
quiet.
are you rating? Or
Yes,
what
yes,
happened?
yes. Baby Boo
He's
Jazz
meaning.
VT. All right, guys. Thanks again, everybody. You are awesome. You were awesome tonight. I can't words can't express how much this means to me that y'all came out here tonight for this podcast. This is one of the biggest streams that I've had without being
No,
rated.
you.
Without being rated, and I just really appreciate it. It means so much to me that you guys are actually interested in this stuff. So I hope to see you all again really soon. Have a great night, and thanks again for coming out.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.